across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good evening. Happy Easter. It is Easter Monday. I'm Peter Cardwell. Thank you so much for your company here on the Evening Exchange. Donald Trump still on his feet. We'll dip into that in a minute with Isabel Oakeshott. Lots to discuss in terms of what he has said about that daring rescue of a fighter pilot. We'll talk to a former US fighter pilot a little bit later on. We'll reflect on that ludicrous story about the Waitrose employee who was sacked for tackling a shoplifter. This comes hot on the heels of a caller I had last week who works for Co-op, who said that he was told, don't tackle shoplifters, you'll get sacked. Now we see it has happened in Waitrose. Absolutely outrageous, ridiculous, stupid story. We will talk about this. It says so much about our society, where there is absolutely no reward for doing the right thing, and there's actually a sanction for doing the right thing and a reward for doing the wrong thing. We'll talk about Trump, as I say, what is happening in the Straits of Hormuz. He says Iran could be obliterated tomorrow. We'll talk on the debate desk to Ebzak and Tade and Phil Dave about all the big issues of the day, including the burgeoning benefits bill. Matt Vickers, the deputy chairman of the Conservative Party, the MP, he's going to be in the studio telling me about why he's under fire for apparently charging constituents £5 to meet him. He says there's more to it, but would you pay even a penny to meet your MP? Lots of people complain they can't even see their MP or they can't get an appointment. We'll speak to Maggie Oliver as well, the former detective constable, about some really shocking stories that emerged over the weekend. One in the Sun yesterday. I was snuck into Parliament as a teen and offered to high-profile politicians for sex. That is a rape gang inquiry a survivor who has said that. We'll speak to Carl Turner MP, suspended from the Labour Party, in his first interview as to why that has actually happened. He's talking on broadcast for the first time. We'll talk to him. And we'll talk about another big story today. It's a bank holiday, but loads of news around Kanye West, or as I call him, Kanye West. He should be gone from the Wireless Festival. You've got advertisers dropping like flies as the Nazi sympathiser is proposed to headline 3 nights of a festival in London. Absolutely outrageous. He should be nowhere near this country. So much to talk about. Yes, it's a bank holiday weekend, but there's loads to discuss, and I want to discuss it with you between now and 10 o'clock. 0344 499 1000. That is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice message, less than a minute please. We'll play those out on the main number. You can send me a WhatsApp text message on the main number. You can ring me on the main number, which is of course 0344 499 1000. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. So many great guests. I'm sure we'll have some great callers too. Stay with us here on Talk. I want to go straight to the White House, and Donald Trump is taking questions from reporters on Iran. Let's just hear a little bit of this.
Very dangerous, and we're getting them at the height of their strength. If I didn't terminate the Barack Hussein Obama Iran nuclear deal, they would have had a, don't forget, that was a path to a nuclear weapon. Remember this. He chose Iran over Israel, pure and simple. How Israel can vote for a Democrat is, if you're Jewish in New York City or any place else in this country, and how you can vote for a Democrat is unbelievable, because he chose Iran, a very hostile Iran. Remember when he filled up a 757 with cash, billions of dollars of cash? And he sent it over to them.
Donald Trump, a familiar foe. He's attacking there live at the White House. He's attacking Barack Obama. Always references his middle name, Barack Hussein Obama. That press conference is ongoing at the moment, and we'll bring you the latest. If there are any lines out of that, we've got our top team behind the glass keeping a very close ear across that. But the president has been very busy today. He was talking at a White House Easter event, talking about Iran. If it was my choice, I'd take the oil. This is what the president has been saying.
If I had my choice, what would I like to do? Take the oil. because it's there for the taking. There's not a thing they can do about it. Unfortunately, the American people would like to see us come home. If it were up to me, I'd take the oil, I'd keep the oil, and would make plenty of money. And I'd also take care of the people of Iran, much better than they've been taken care of. It's been horrible. They've killed 45,000 people as of a month and a half ago. 45,000 protesters. We don't do that. So if I had my choice, I'd keep the oil. But I also want to make the people of our country happy. I think most people wouldn't understand that.
He talked about the Iranian people too.
So in a breathtaking show of skill and precision, lethality and force, America's military descended on the area, the real area, engaged the enemy, rescued the stranded officer, destroyed all threats, and exited Iranian territory while taking no casualties of any kind. The heroic F-15 weapons system officer had evaded capture on the ground in Iran for almost 48 hours. That's a long time when you're in tough shape and when you're bleeding. It's a long time.
An absolutely remarkable story over the weekend. The news emerged very early, about 5 o'clock in the morning, our time, but midnight Washington time, of what actually happened in Iran, in southern Iran, that daring mission. It even included things like hundreds of millions of pounds worth of equipment, 2 army helicopters that had to be destroyed because they were malfunctioning and they didn't want the Iranians to get them. Final clip from Trump now. He says Iran could be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. We'll get Isabel's reaction in a second, but let's hear this from Donald Trump.
Late Thursday night, an American F-15 fighter jet went down deep inside enemy territory in Iran while participating in Operation Epic Fury, where we're doing unbelievably well, well at a level that nobody's ever seen before. The entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night.
Let's just reflect on this just for a second with Isabel Oakeshott, Talks International editor. Good evening, Isabel.
Good evening. Well, what an extraordinary press conference this is.
It's just that line, Isabel. The entire country could be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night, from the President of the United States, as well as everything else he's talking about.
I mean, we've learned not really to be surprised by anything Donald Trump said, and there's an awful lot of contradictions in that press conference, and then also in the clips that you played just now from earlier in the day. You can sense a president sort of inner turmoil, I think, as on the one hand, instinctively, he basically wants to bomb Iran to smithereens, and as he put it, take the oil. That's his sort of reflex. And on the other hand, he understands that this is not what his own voters want, what the American people want, and he's got to have an eye on the midterm elections. So he's torn in both directions, and I think that probably accounts for the contradictory rhetoric that comes out. You know, as another example of contradiction, on the one hand, he said in today's press conference, which is still ongoing, that he very much does have a plan. He's just not telling us what it is. And he said, well, you know, it wouldn't make sense for me to say, well, on Tuesday, I'm going to do this, and on Wednesday, I'm going to do this. And I was like, well, hang on a minute. That's exactly what you've said. You've precisely said that on Tuesday, or whatever the time is, I know there's about 36 hours left, I think, before his deadline. Then he's going to start attacking infrastructure, bridges, and so on. So he's continually contradicting his own position there. Ostensibly, this press conference was about that astonishing rescue mission, which I'm certain is going to be made into an amazing film.
It was absolutely incredible. I was actually on a different station, part of this group, but a different station, Times Radio, yesterday morning, just filling in because it's the Easter weekend. And I was up and about and reading the news websites at 5 a.m. and oh my goodness, when that came through, it changed the whole running order. It changed the whole nature of what the world was talking about, Isabel. An incredibly daring rescue. We know quite a lot of the detail of it. One of the great benefits of Donald Trump is that he tells you so much that previously we wouldn't be told by other presidents. For example, those two hundreds of millions of pounds of technology of those helicopters that had to be destroyed because they were malfunctioning and they couldn't let the Iranians get their paws on the technology there, and the fact that colonel was injured, he was stemming the wounds and so on. We heard about that a little bit more today as well. Incredibly daring rescue, Isabel.
I mean, it's just jaw-dropping, the amount of resources that have gone into the rescue of, well, effectively two American pilots, and this whole pride that the American armed forces has in that philosophy, that mantra, no man nor woman to be left behind.
And that's exactly what Trump had put on Truth Social as well, Isabel, wasn't it?
My goodness, they utterly delivered on that. I mean, the whole thing, God knows how much it cost, but possibly a kind of $1 billion rescue. We know that they had to burn out those two helicopters, which in themselves were worth about 100 million each. So you stack up all the costs, and my God, you know, they do go to the ends of the earth and beyond to pick up their own. And it's hard not to reflect on the contrast of what we, the UK, could manage in similar circumstances. I mean, we just, you know, what our SAS are absolutely incredible. Our special forces are every bit as good and skilled as America's and are still a reference point for armies all over the world. But we just don't have anything like the resources or the kit to perform a rescue mission like that.
And it just puts into stark contrast what this country is militarily and as a world power as well. Just looking to see what happens over the next few days. Will this be a taco event? Trump always chickens out. He set this deadline. He said, as we know, that he could destroy the entirety of Iran in one night. I think that's perhaps a little bit ambitious, as it's, you know, a huge country, and I don't even know if it's desirable to do that. What is your sense? I'm not asking you to be Mystic Meg, but what is your sense of what could occur over the next few days, Isabel?
I mean, sitting here in the region, you know, just over the water from Iran, it's fair to say that I'm absolutely obsessing about that very question. I think everybody in the Middle East is, and here in Dubai, as people know, you know, we are being particularly unreasonably targeted by the Iranian regime. We had 2 missile alerts in the middle of the night last night. I feel completely safe. This is not me saying poor me. It's, you know, it's not, it doesn't feel like being in a war zone at all, but that is the reality, I suppose. And it's only because the UAE has got such good defense systems that we're not actually being harmed. Fortunately, very, very few injuries. But look, nobody knows. I'm not even convinced Trump knows. You know, he stood there and said he's got a grand plan, but I feel like he could change on a dime. You know, there was a flurry of excitement this morning when the Pakistanis put out a proposed peace deal, a ceasefire deal. They are looking for ownership of an Islamabad Accord. I thought at the time, well, this is just the Pakistanis trying to look like players on the world stage, trying to look like peace brokers. And so it proved, you know, neither the Iranians nor the Americans had remotely signed up to this Pakistan plan for a 45-day ceasefire. It could go either way, couldn't it, Peter? I mean, it could go that there is an astonishing new assault of military firepower on Iran in 24, 36 hours time, and that Iran, utterly unpredictable itself, hits back. Who knows? Is it at the UAE? Is it at Saudi? Who do they hit back at and how? Or it could be that it's another, you know, Trump says, well, you know, we're now talking to more reasonable people and I'm going to defer this. And, you know, it was notable at the press conference just now that he claimed, I think entirely fictitiously, that he's now dealing with a new regime. He literally claimed just now that he's achieved regime change. Well, he hasn't.
Yeah, that is factually wrong. Isabel, can I just get the Oakeshott take on 2 big stories we're going to be discussing quite a lot during the programme? One is this Waitrose employee who is sacked. I saw you were tweeting about it earlier on today. What on earth is going on here?
I think Waitrose has made an extraordinary mess of this. You know, they've got a loyal employee there who, in my opinion, did the right and the brave thing, tried to confront a shoplifter and ended up paying with his job. And there's a huge public outcry about this, quite rightly so. And instead of recognizing that they've made a massive error of judgment, Waitrose this afternoon has doubled down and bleated on about how their policy is that no employee should ever do this because it's not worth risking their lives, as if you go from 0 to 100 and by confronting a shoplifter you're gonna get murdered.
Isabel, I had a caller last week, a guy who rang in about something else, and he said, oh yeah, actually I work in Co-op, can I talk about the shoplifting thing, because we were talking about it a couple of nights last week. I said, of course, I'd love to hear your perspective. He said Co-op told him that if he intervened, if he even said to people, are you going to pay for that? Or handed them a basket and said, you might want a basket just to make sure you pay for those things, he would be sacked. And now we see it. And I mentioned this to a couple of people and they said, that can't be true. That's a caller telling you a tall story. That can't be right. I said, I believe him. Why would he tell me that if it wasn't true? Our viewers and listeners are people of a lot of integrity. And here we are, as night follows day, someone in a rival supermarket, and there it has happened. Let me just ask you, just before you go, about Kanye West, or Kanye West, as I would like to call him, because there's no way he should be in the UK. So many people talking about the fact that he has supported Hitler, that they're talking about this from an anti-Semitism angle, and yeah, that's part of it. But my question is, where are the women's rights groups? Where are the gay rights groups about all the gay people that Hitler killed? Where are the Romanian traveller groups saying that Kanye West, any supporter of neo-Nazism, can't be in this country? Where are all those people? That's what I want to know.
Well, it's always the same with this lot, isn't it? Their selective judgment, their selective outrage is applied totally inconsistently and often completely illogically. I'm not that wound up about Kanye West. There's so much. Not that I want to make it clear, I utterly condemn all those things and those positions that he's taken. They're absolutely abhorrent. And too often from the left, there is just a tolerance of this type of grotesque anti-Semitism. For me, I'm not that bothered about Kanye West generally. I feel like there's so many other massive things going on, but it would be nice not to have this inconsistency. It'd be nice to have a little less hypocrisy, wouldn't it, from the eternally outraged hard left.
You're absolutely right, Isabel, and even as a lifelong drinker of Diet Coke, I say well done Pepsi for canning Kanye. Isabel, thank you. That's Isabel Oakeshott there, Talks International editor. Let's just hear a little bit more of Donald Trump. He is speaking live in the White House.
Germany telling us that, well, it's not their war. We had nothing to do with it. They wanted me to go and tell them everything I was doing. We didn't know anything about it. Well, if I would have told them, they would have leaked it, and we wouldn't have been nearly as successful, possibly, right?
Donald Trump there taking aim at another foe, Germany, and that discussion about NATO continues. The president continuing this quite long press conference, going on for about an hour and 15 minutes. Our top minds and brains behind the scenes keeping an eye across and an ear across all of that, and if there's anything more to that, any significant lines that come out, we will of course bring it to you as soon as it happens. I'm going to go to the debate desk in a second. Phil, Dave and Ebbs Akintade are waiting, but before then I just want to tell you about something that might put a smile on your face. We're giving you the chance to win a life-changing £20,000 completely tax-free here on Talk. That's £20,000 straight into your bank account. Spend it, save it, splash it. It's entirely up to you. Here's how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay. Thank you to everybody who's been in touch, including Becca, who says, I've stopped believing anything Trump says. Rachel says, good evening, Peter. I totally agree with you about Kanye West, but Keir Starmer and Sadiq Khan have no right to criticism. They have stood by and watched anti-Semitism grow in the UK and done absolutely nothing, says Rachel. MG from Staffordshire says, I have full respect for Trump and what he said today about Iran. Usually I have no interest in him and think he is an egotistical idiot. Well, the president is still talking at the White House. Let's hear a little bit more of what he's saying. Let's just dip into this right now.
Thank you very much. Just to clarify, in order for Iran to successfully meet your deadline tomorrow, do they have to make a deal, open the strait, or both?
We have to have a deal that's acceptable to me. And part of that deal is going to be we want free traffic of oil and everything else.
That's the president taking questions. Good question there from the journalist. Didn't quite answer it there, didn't give him a full answer necessarily. But earlier on, speaking about the media actually, Trump talked about what he believes is a media leak of the rescue mission in Iran. This is what he said a bit earlier on.
As you probably know, we didn't talk about the first one for an hour, and then somebody leaked something, which we'll hopefully find that leaker. We're looking very hard to find that leaker, and talked about there's somebody missing. They basically said that we have one and there's somebody missing. Well, they didn't know there was somebody missing until this leaker gave the information. So whoever it was, we think we'll be able to find it out because we're going to go to the media company that released it and we're going to say, national security, give it up or go to jail. They put this mission at great risk. They put that man at great risk, and they put the hundreds of people that went in looking for him, because everyone now knows that we're going in.
Donald Trump speaking earlier, talking about a leak to the media. They want to find that person who did that. Ebs Akintade is with me, and Ebs, you sort of have your head in your hands there, as is Phil Dave on the debate desk. Phil Dave, talk presenter. Ebs is a political commentator. Ebs, your thoughts on President Trump and what he's saying today?
Where to even begin? It's just the ramblings of an absolute madman.
I mean, he got two pilots. He got the pilots out of Iran. That is a major achievement, is it not?
It's a major achievement, but it's not something which he's not saying anything that makes any kind of clear, concise sense. You will say, but Ebs, that's not news, because that's what he always does anyway. But this is now so far beyond the realms of acceptable common sense. He almost confuses me when he talks.
Why is it beyond the bounds of common sense?
Because
hold on. For an American president, sorry, there's a ringing somewhere. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Ebs, there's a problem with your microphone, Ebs, I think. Can we take Ebs' microphone down? I'll speak to Phil and then see if we can fix it. We'll come back to Ebs, certainly. But Phil, what's your impression of what the president's saying and doing?
Look, it's very frustrating because I have to say I do give Donald Trump probably a bit more credit than most people do, because I actually fundamentally believe in a lot of the politics he's trying to achieve, especially on a global scale. So to my mind, I think that going in and dismantling the Iranian regime is the right thing for the sake of the world, never mind that region.
But is he going to do that? However, is he going to be able to do that? And I'm not sure he really cares about regime change anymore.
No, he himself, no, but the American military alongside the Israeli military, absolutely, I fully believe they can. Because, I mean, even the Israeli military on its own, I believe, could do it, to be honest with you. But I think that with the back...
Really? I mean, why haven't they in the last 20 years? Why do a joint mission with the Americans if they can do that? The Israeli military is big and powerful and does some very impressive things militarily, but surely it could have done this at various points in the last 20 years by itself. Why would they team up with the Americans if they could just do it themselves?
Well, I mean, I think the obvious is because that sort of with united they stand, divided they could fall. I don't think
but they are divided. There are fissures between what they want, what the Israelis definitely want, the three stated aims. They want the ballistic missiles gone. They want the nuclear weapons gone. And I think Trump believes in those two things, certainly. What I'm not sure he really cares about anymore is regime change.
No, I would say that I don't think he doesn't care about regime change. It's possible that, and I don't know this for certain, but it is possible that maybe the Israelis possibly told Trump that it was easier to achieve than maybe it is, and now the president's thinking, oh heck, well, I don't really want to be tied up in this forever. I'd rather this was a
Our
quick
top
in and
story
out job.
here on Talk this evening, Phil Dave mildly criticises the Israeli government. It doesn't often.
Hey, I've done that often
I
enough.
know you have. I know you have. Ebbs, I think we can bring you back in, hopefully without the ringing in our ears. But always good to hear your voice. Tell us expand on why you think Trump is not talking sense here.
Because, like the strapline says, he says he has a plan, but he doesn't have a plan. Everything he said is like it's either over confabulated or it's just nonsense that contradicts itself. I have a plan, but I don't have a plan. I'm going to stop the Iran war within a week. He hasn't. I want the Nobel Peace Prize, but yet you're going out for war. It's just it's like a spaghetti junction of confusion. And the more you think about it, the more you get a headache. And that is, and has always been, as long as he's been in power, this is Trump version 2, even worse than it was before. It's mind-blowing.
When he says the entire country could be taken out in one night, and that might be tomorrow night when he's talking about Iran and this deadline, do you think he's going to go... I mean, I don't think logistically the entire country of Iran could be taken out one night, but given what he's talking about, is he serious, or will it be taco Trump again? Trump always chickens out.
It's not even so much taco Trump, it's just hyperbole. It's saying that, he's the greatest thing in the world, it's the greatest thing to slice bread, you can get rid of a country. No, it's all nonsense. You don't only have to take it with a pinch of salt. You've got to take it like with a factory of salt.
Do you not think there's been any military success when it comes to Iran? Look at Venezuela. Look at the fact that they've rescued those 2 airmen, for example. Look at the fact that they are certainly pummeling many. They've killed the Ayatollah. I mean, there are some successes here.
It depends how you measure success. If you're going to get little peaks of success out of lots of troughs of absolute failure and unnecessary war and unnecessary deaths, then Trump's your guy.
Yeah, but this is not unnecessary war, though. That's the whole point. That's exactly the point. This whole thing with Iran is not unnecessary in the slightest. It's actually essential to the survival of certainly the Western world as we know it. The Iranians have made it, literally the Iranian regime has made it absolutely no hidden secret that as soon as they're finished going after Israel, America is next and the UK is next. It's not unnecessary, it's essential.
Final thought from Ebbs before we go to the break.
Well, you say it's essential in a long-term way.
Well, let me put it this way. I'd rather that they fell down than we did. And I think if the Iranians attacked us tomorrow, I think it would be the UK that falls. So, as far as I'm concerned, happily see the end.
But there are no winners in war, as you well know.
This is very true, but the Iranian regime doesn't care. They don't see it like that. They don't care about living in peace. It's not possible to make peace with people who want to kill you. That's the problem. Okay, lots to chew over and all of that. Trump still on his feet. Let's just hear another 10, 20 seconds of what he's saying here. He's still an hour and a half into this press conference.
Wonderful guy. Secretary General is great. And Mark Rutte, he's a great person, but he's got... And it all began with, if you want to know the truth, Greenland. We want Greenland.
More about Greenland. He's talking about Mark Rutte there, the head of NATO, who famously called him Daddy, which wasn't weird at all. Lots more to discuss when on the debate desk with Ebbs and with Phil in just a second. And if you want to get your call in, 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks to everybody who's been in touch, including Margaret in Birmingham, who says, I'm really looking forward to hearing from Carl Turner, the interview. Yeah, that's coming up a little bit later on in the programme. This is the Labour MP who says he's been briefed against, he's been targeted in many ways because he criticised Keir Starmer. He's lost the whip, he's been suspended from the Labour Party. He's now an independent MP because of that. Margaret says Carl never dodges a question and gives his honest opinion. If I was Carl, I'd stay as an independent. Starmer does not deserve this MP, says Margaret in Birmingham. Very, very interesting perspective. Thank you for that. Bill in Ipswich says, I'm tired of all the criticism of Trump when the horrors perpetuated by the IRGC go unmentioned, says Bill in Ipswich. And Bill, you're absolutely right, and it is worth saying, even though we're on day 37, 38, whatever it is, of this war, it is worth saying all the time, every single day, that the people in Iran are being repressed, are being murdered. Women who are raped are hanged because they are adulterers in the view of the regime. They are horrible, dreadful, awful people, and if there was regime change in Iran, the world would be a better place. That is my strong view. The problem is, as someone who originally supported this war, and I think I kind of still do, I'm not sure Donald Trump actually wants regime change. I am not sure that is his stated aim. It is the stated aim and remains a big aim and target, certainly for the Israelis, who are very, very straightforward in what they want. They want ballistic missiles gone, they want a nuclear Iran, not a nuclear Iran, and they want regime change. So lots to discuss in all of that. However you want to discuss it, whatever you want to say, get in touch, 0344 499 1000. The next story might seem like a small story, but actually it's a huge story because it tells us so much about where we are as a nation. This is a man who worked in Waitrose for 17 years, and he was working there for quite a while, and he has described his devastation after being sacked for stopping a shoplifter who had ransacked a display of Lint Gold Bunny Easter eggs. This is Walter Smith is his name. He's a shop assistant at a branch of Waitrose in Clapham Junction in London, in the South London, who was going about his normal duties when a customer stopped him. They told me someone had filled up a Waitrose bag with the eggs. The 54-year-old said the shoplifter was a repeat offender. He spotted him, he grabbed the bag, the shoplifter snatched it back. There was a struggle for a few seconds, and then it snapped. The Easter eggs are £13 each. They fell to the floor. The shoplifter made a dash for the exit. Smith said one of the bunnies broke into pieces. He picked up a piece and threw it out of frustration towards some shopping trolleys, not aiming it at the shoplifter. He was told off by a manager. He apologised, but the matter escalated. Smith says that he previously told not to approach shoplifters, but the tool of seeing them get away with theft repeatedly spurred him into action. I've been there 17 years. I've seen it happen every hour of every day for the past 5 years. It's everybody from drug addicts to teenagers nicking bits and bobs or walking out with bottles of wine in their arms. We're not allowed to do anything. So we're in a situation now where the shoplifters get away with shoplifting, and the people who try to stop them are sacked. I got a call last week. I'm just going to mention this one more time for the sake of Ebbs and Phil, who might not have heard it. I had a call last week from someone who was ringing about something else and then said, oh, actually, I work in Co-op. Can I tell you about shoplifting? I said, yes, go ahead. And he said, in Co-op where he works, if you confront a shoplifter, if you even say, are you going to pay for those things, sir, madam, whatever, you could be at risk of being fired. I mentioned this to a number of people who said, that's nonsense, Peter. That guy can't be telling the truth. Well, here it is, plain as day. That's exactly what happened. Yes, there's a little bit more to it, but not much more. Phil.
I just can't get my head around it. You know, we are literally through the looking glass now, where we live in a day and age where you are allowed to, in inverted commas, I mean, according to the law, you're not, obviously, but you are allowed, in inverted commas, to walk out without paying for something. Those who are decent, hardworking and prepared to pay, you know, even just work for the shop. For goodness sake, Walter Smith was actually looking out for his employer. That's exactly clearly what he was trying to do here by stopping someone shoplifting. And this is the thanks he gets. It's mad.
After 17 years loyal service. Ebbs.
It is mad. I've been in Waitrose myself, not in Clapham Junction, but the one in King's Cross. And I've literally witnessed people come in through a side door, go to the most expensive bottles of wine that they can get their hands on, come in, get them, leave. And then when I asked the people behind the shop or who work in the shop, well, where's security? You've got like 5 different exits and entrances. Why don't you have security to stop people? They said, oh, well, they've scaled back security across Waitrose. It's the same in M&S, it's the same in Greggs, it's the same everywhere. it's actually embarrassing that we are allowing people to just go and shoplift and go and get what they want. I have witnessed it countless times, literally standing there with my mouth open. This employee is trying to defend his own employer's goods, profits, everything. He didn't need to go out on a limb and do that, but he did because he loves the shop so much. But he's been there 17 years.
Where on earth is the incentive for those now who, for so many years, have been taught, quite rightly, you go into a shop, you choose your goods and you pay for them, then you leave.
But Phil,
where's the incentive to do that anymore?
That is a brilliant comment. And it's not just about Waitrose, it's not just about shoplifting, it's about our entire society. Where is the incentive? Where is the reward for doing the right thing? There are loads of people who do the right thing every day. There are loads of people who go to work every day and pay their taxes, and they're hammered all the time.
Is it the reward for doing the right thing, though, or is it the lack of punishment for doing the wrong thing? Because I've actually never needed a reward for doing the right thing. I'm not a dog. I don't need training. I know what the right thing... Do you mind? I know what the right thing to do is. It's very simple. I've always been taught, quite rightly, the law states you do not steal from a shop. Yeah. You pay for something.
And Walter himself said, I tried to stay strong. I didn't say a word, but inside I was crying. They led me out the back door by the bins. I just felt demoralised. To give Waitrose their say, as we must do, they said, we take the safety and security of our customers and our partners, that's what they call their employees, incredibly seriously, and to do this we have policies in place which our partners are aware of and are required to follow. In reference to the point on guarding, we make absolutely sure that our shops have appropriate levels of guarding, and this is constantly adjusted according to the level of risk. The spokesman said the policies must be strictly followed because of the potentially serious danger to life in tackling shoplifters. As a responsible employer, the spokesman said, we never want to be in a position where we are notifying families of a tragedy because someone tried to stop a theft. Nothing we sell is worth risking lives for. They added that they could not discuss individual cases, but the correct process was being followed, which included a standard appeals process. Suzanne is in Battersea, and Suzanne, I understand you are actually a Waitrose employee. Suzanne,
no,
good evening.
I'm not.
No?
No.
Oh, but you know Walter, is that correct?
I know Walter as a customer.
As a customer, okay, apologies, I got that wrong. So you've been in this particular supermarket then?
Since it opened up after Woolworths closed down.
Okay, so for some time, it's been a while since Woolworths was around. What do you make?
20 years, I think.
What do you make of this story, Suzanne?
I'm very disturbed because Walker Smith was such an exemplary employee. He would recognize you every time you went into the store, and because I'm disabled, he even helped me take my purchases to the car around the corner. And I'm just gobsmacked how this can happen to him.
It sounds as if I haven't met him, I haven't interviewed him, but I'm sure you're telling us your correct impressions. You've known him for a long time. He sounds like a total gentleman.
Oh, a total gentleman.
And what do you think of what Waitrose have done?
Well, I think it's shameful. How can, as I understand it, he witnessing this every day, hour after hour after hour, he had well, what do you call it? He suddenly felt he couldn't take it anymore.
Yes. And yet he remained within the law. Yes, he got a bit frustrated, as I'm sure many people do, and now he's lost his job. I mean, what do you think of what Waitrose have done to him?
How can you lose your job by defending your employer? I'm sorry, I don't understand that in any way whatsoever.
Suzanne, listen, thank you for that. If you see Walter, if you are talking to him in any way, if you encounter him in the street, please give us our best wishes. I'd love to speak to him on this station, if you could pass on our wishes for that to happen as well. Really appreciate that, Suzanne. Thank you, Suzanne in Battersea in London there. Elisa in Chelmsford's been in touch and says, regarding thefts and shoplifting, we need to teach people self-respect before they can respect others. People like you and I have enough self-respect not to steal. That is what's missing in society. Ebbs.
I used to be a partner.
Did you?
I used to
at
Waitrose?
Waitrose?
No, at John Lewis.
John Lewis,
in Sloane Square, Peter Jones.
Okay.
And I, back in the day when I started in 2001, it is drilled into you the importance of good customer service, and being a partner is being part of this wonderful organisation that is John Lewis. So that's drilled into you from the get-go. If he's been there 17 years, we hadn't had the pandemic or anything else, because I realised that customer service has nosedived since the pandemic.
Yes.
And so he probably is like old school thinking from about, 16 years ago when he started, to make sure that everything you're doing is for the benefit of the business. What he was doing was for the benefit of the business. Clapham Junction is one of this country's busiest stations. The footfall coming in and out of that particular Waitrose is huge. So that means then a lot of people are nicking goods from the shelves at any opportunity. They must be losing thousands of pounds every day just from shoplifters.
I just can't get my head around it. Seriously, the more I think about it, the more bonkers it is. If you have an employee who is so loyal, so dedicated to the shop, that they are prepared to put themselves on the line and stop shoplifters.
From Waitrose's, let's just get Waitrose's view on this. I've read out their statement, but they don't want people to put themselves at risk, Phil. They don't want...
They might not want it, but if someone feels that strongly about their shop that they want to protect it, it's surely, to some degree, it's down to the individual.
But if they don't want that to happen, that Clapham Junction Waitrose needs to have security. If you can't put security in every shop, that is the one Waitrose shop that needs it, due to the huge volumes of people passing through.
Yeah.
But how can it be a sackable... I mean, obviously, I think we've got to be very clear here. We obviously don't know the full picture here. I think we're looking at newspaper headlines and newspaper stories.
Well, he's been interviewed. He's given a full account of what has happened here, and he said, just to give a bit more context, he said security had been scaled back at the shop. No guards working on Mondays and Tuesdays because shoplifting incidents aren't reported enough. This left non-security staff, including Walter Smith, on the front line of the problem. He says he regretted how he acted. When I got home, I was punching myself thinking, why did I do that? After a few days, he was hauled into a meeting with 2 store managers. I had a feeling about what was going to happen. He made a final plea, telling his bosses Waitrose is like my family, but he was still dismissed.
It's just unbelievable. Yeah. Seriously, I mean, the fact that someone can feel that strongly about their employee, and especially someone who's like such a large scale, that John Lewis and Waitrose and all of the, sort of, obviously they are one company, but the fact that they clearly build an environment where someone could be that loyal to them and feels as though it is their family.
Ownership.
And this is the thanks he gets.
Well, that's exactly what they were teaching you, wasn't it?
Yes.
Ebbs, they were teaching you in that business.
Yes.
This is really important.
Your part, is the partnership is you're a co-owner of the business. So if someone is taking goods from your shop, they're basically taking goods from you.
Yes.
They're taking the mickey out of you.
And that's the point, because you get a bonus as well, which is to do with your stake in it as a partner.
Absolutely. Every March you get a bonus because you're part of that business.
Elliot says, so Waitrose can now lay off all security, and it's now been announced that their policy is to do nothing, and everyone may as well go to Waitrose and shoplift. I'm sick of the wrong thing not being punished. We live in a country where it seems crime is rewarded. Elliot, you're right. It doesn't just seem, it happens. Let's hear a voice note from Laura on Waitrose.
What Waitrose has omitted to say is that under current law, if that shoplifter had been injured by their employee, they would have been liable, and the shoplifter could have taken Waitrose to court and got money out of them. And that is why Waitrose doesn't want their employees to tackle shoplifters, because they are scared that these shoplifters are going to sue them for a lot of money. Perhaps this government needs to look at this law and change it, and that would resolve both problems, and then this poor man maybe could get his job back.
Very interesting one from you, Laura. Thank you. David in the Cotswolds says, Walter Smith sees that shoplifting is wrong, so he stands up against it. Trump sees that the Islamic Republic having nuclear weapons is wrong, so he stands up against it. Walter Smith has more common sense and gumption than many in the House of Lords. Get him in there. I would trust him to know more about real life than the slackers we have in there at the moment, says David in the Cotswolds. More on this because you want to respond to it, and this is my show, but it's your show too. You want to talk about it, we'll talk about it. We're going to talk more about this after the break. Stay with us.
Good morning to you. This is Tour the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Loads of people getting in touch about Walter Smith and what happened at Waitrose. This is the employee who was tackled the shoplifter and not even physically tackled the shoplifter and then was sacked. Amanda says, after the sacking of the Waitrose employee Walter Smith and seeing the antisocial behaviour all around us, I feel we as a country rested on our laurels since the end of the Second World War. We lost our British sense of humour, we lost our good manners, we lost our patriotism. Sarah says, why is it that when you're caught on speed cameras or incur a parking fine, which can be around the £100 mark, you can be chased into court and won't find a way out of paying, but when you go into a store and steal goods to the same value and more, that they will just wave the goods goodbye as security guards are unable to stop thieves? How can one be justifiably chased but the other brushed off in the eyes of the law? Very, very good point, Sarah. Also, Stephen in Belfast, who says, after a 40-year retail career, I am apoplectic at Waitrose. I managed a high street store with a modest security team of 6. If this scumbag egg thief had come across my team, he'd have needed assistance to walk home. I missed the olden days, says Stephen in Belfast. Bob in Winchester, we're still in the debate desk, I should say, with Ebbs and Phil, but Bob in Winchester has given us a ring. Bob, you're on with me, but also Ebbs and Phil as well, Ebbs Akintade and Phil Dave. You're very welcome to the programme this evening. What would you like to say?
Oh, hi, Peter. It's great to talk to you at last. Look, I just wanted to say I've never phoned a show like this before, but I'm just so angry about this story. This isn't just a simple little guy story. I mean, this question of it's about our civilization, our values, our justice, fairness. You don't have to explain that to people, because we know it in our hearts.
We do, Bob, but why do Waitrose and other... It's not just about Waitrose, it's about the Co-op, it's about lots of other places as well. We had the head of Marks and Spencer's last week saying the government and the authorities need to do more. Do the supermarkets need to do more? Do we need to sort this as a society? How do we deal with this? Because a lot of things that I hear about on our programmes are things where people say, here's a quick fix, and I'm not sure there is a quick fix to this. What do you think, Bob?
There isn't a quick fix, but it's a question of values. Now, look, I'll be quite honest with you. I was a police officer in London in the 70s, 80s, into the 90s. We used to deal with shoplifting in those days, and we used to deal with them as well, it is a proper crime. You know, to take from the person of another something which doesn't belong to you is a crime. Theft Act, you know, but we've lost a sense of value. But when we talk about value, we have to talk about what are values. Values are something that means something to, for instance, a community. We use the word community a lot. Value means what is valuable, not to me as an individual, not to this poor little guy who's got the sack, but what matters to us as a community, whether that's an English community or just a human community. Values.
Bob, there is so much common sense in what you say. Thank you so much for that call, and please give me a ring anytime. It's your first call, but I do not want it to be your last call, Bob, because there's a lot of common sense in what you say. I do want to talk about Kanye West, but I also want a final thought from Ebbs and Phil. Ebbs first.
I think it's part of a wider picture. The lovely caller, the lovely gentleman Bob, who's just come through, is exactly right. I think we've just lost value. In 2 words, we've lost value. It's not just lost the value of goods, but we've just lost the values in humanity, in common sense, in the day-to-day. I think I now see it daily. People just don't have value to anything, and it's really sad.
There's definitely an element to that, but I think what disturbs me more is the way that we're so willing to just dismiss what is described as sort of lesser crimes, for just to say that, you know, oh, well, we've lost the war on that. So we've lost the war on drugs, we've lost the war on shoplifting, but how much more are we going to lose the war on? Are we prepared to lose the war on murder, perhaps?
How do you come back to this when you say, I think we've lost the war on rape, for example? I thought we've lost the war on that. We're going to talk about grooming gangs, rape gangs later on. That is something that for such a long time, was brushed under the carpet for a long time. We're going to talk to Maggie Oliver in a few minutes about that. We could talk a lot more about this. I'm going to read out 2 messages, and then I'm going to ask you briefly about Kanye West. Dawn in Chelmsford says, hi Peter, let's get together, visit Waitrose. You can get a multi-pack of Diet Coke, I'll get some expensive wine. We can walk out together without paying. Linda says, evening Cardi P, evening Linda. Linda from Worcestershire, we can rename supermarkets, especially Waitrose, as food banks. Now we all know we can walk in and steal without any consequences. Perhaps now they've rendered Walker Smith jobless, no salary. He can get free food from his ex-employer any time he likes. It is a bonkers society. It's a crazy story. It's one man, it's one supermarket, but it tells us so much about where we are as a society. Right, let's talk about Kanye West. This is the rapper and fan of Hitler who has his permission to enter the UK under review as the Wireless Festival backlash grows. I am a lifetime Diet Coke drinker, but I'm going to say well done Pepsi for calming Kanye on this one. Phil Dave.
Where do you want me to start with this? I think that the only way I'd look at this is I'd say, could you imagine if it was openly attacking any other minority? If there was someone who was openly attacking potentially someone for their sexuality, potentially someone for their skin colour, potentially for another religion, whatever it may be, with the possible exception of Christianity, because of course as we all know Christianity bashing in this country is permitted as well for some stupid reason, but it's all racism, it's all abhorrent, and if it was anyone else tackling any other minority
but the thing is, but it's not,
I think they wouldn't be allowed. They wouldn't be a question.
I mean, you know, it's surreal that we even have to discuss this.
Exactly.
But you know, Hitler didn't just go against 6 million Jews. There was a total of between
4 million others.
Well, possibly depending on who you believe, between 12 and 17 people killed in the Holocaust. Lots of people who were gay, for example. Lots of people who were of different races. Ebbs, what do you make of the fact that Kanye West is still at this moment apparently coming to this festival? Should he?
Well, it does say he hasn't made any immediate plans to travel to the UK. So I'm going to take that.
He's been confirmed as the person who's headlining the thing for three days.
I don't think Kanye West has got I've got to be careful what I say, but I think Kanye West is a divisive character that doesn't need to come to this country. I don't think he needs to come and perform here. I think he's shown methods of his behaviour that are a little bit outlandish, but then there are similarities.
A little bit outlandish?
I'm trying to water it down.
Why? I don't want to water it down. It's racism. I'd never water it down if it was someone who was, say, being horrible to someone who's from black community. I find it deeply offensive what he said. It's really unpleasant what he said. So if you're Jewish,
I don't think Ebbs is not saying that. I don't think Ebbs is showing off.
You have every right to be quite frustrated about it, Phil. I absolutely get it. But I just think that he has displayed behaviours that I would call based from a mental health challenge, I would say.
Yeah.
I'm alleging that because his behaviours have been so sporadic and so strange. But then, same with Trump, so what can you say?
No, it's not the same with Trump at all. I totally reject that last comment, but you're absolutely right, and we're happy to point out that none of the three of us is a qualified medical professional, so, but clearly there are a series of absolutely bizarre behaviours that Kanye West has indulged in over the latest while, over a number of years now. In just a second, we're going to talk to Maggie Oliver about some shocking stories over the weekend about people smuggled into Parliament to have sex with MPs. Absolutely ridiculous.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good evening. This is the Evening Exchange. I'm Peter Cardwell. Lots to discuss on Trump, on things like the Waitrose employee who was sacked after 17 years. Why? Because he tackled a shoplifter. And another shocking story, a grooming gang victim alleging she was smuggled into Parliament to be offered for sex to a high-profile politician before being forced to sleep with men after party conferences as a teen. The indefatigable campaigner Maggie Oliver is taking up her cause. We'll talk to her in just a second. So much to discuss this evening. No matter what you want to discuss, whether it's Waitrose, whether it's Trump, whether it's the story we're about to cover, or anything else that's on the tip of your tongue, 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. You can send me a WhatsApp voice message. We've had some of those already. Keep them coming in. Less than a minute, please, if you would. 0344 499 1000. That number for WhatsApp text messages as well, and also to give me a ring on the phone. So much to discuss between now and 10 o'clock. Stay with us here on Talk. Lots on the Waitrose story, including Joe in Blackpool saying, Peter, this isn't Great Britain anymore. It's a lawless no man's land, says Joe in Blackpool. And we had a funny and sarcastic message, certainly from Dawn a little bit earlier on. Just to be absolutely clear, of course, we do not in any way express any positivity towards law breaking. In fact, quite the opposite. And Dawn, of course, was just having his tongue in his cheek there, as you sort of have to. You kind of almost have to laugh at the absurd, ridiculous, upside down, topsy-turvy way our society is now. And so much of those stories, and the story I'm about to tell you about, is just about the law. It's just about basic morality. It's about fairness as well. It's about people being treated fairly, and the contract we have with the country, with the state, which is that we act lawfully and you treat us fairly. That apparently didn't happen at all in any way, shape or form to a grooming gang victim, alleging she was smuggled into Parliament to be offered for sex to a high-profile politician before being forced to sleep with men after party conferences as a teen. Amelia told The Sun she was sexually exploited as a young teenage girl in Oldham, Greater Manchester, at the height of the town's grooming gangs scandal. A very senior politician was introduced to me and shook my hand. I didn't know who he was at the time. I didn't have a clue about politics, but I remember his name. The man then took me to a hotel where we had sex. I never saw him again. I saw him or the politician again. I mean, some of the detail in this I'll not go into actually at this time of the evening, but she is being supported, as are many others, by the indefatigable campaigner Maggie Oliver, former Detective Constable at Greater Manchester Police, whistleblower on the Rochdale grooming gang case, founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation. I'm not sure the media would be dealing with this even in the way it does without Maggie Oliver, who's with me now. Maggie, worth saying, of course, that Amelia is not her real name. She has lifelong anonymity as a victim of these vile gangs. And here we are with yet more evidence that it goes all the way to the top.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Yeah, I mean, we at the Maggie Oliver Foundation, we've been supporting Amelia for about 4 years now. And her case is harrowing once again. I think what it shows is just what a broken system we have. We have no independent scrutiny. We have nowhere for victims to go when they are being failed. We've advocated alongside her and helped her to find her voice. She's still very nervous, but she feels now that she has found her voice and she won't be silenced. But, you know, we've supported her to go, you know, complaints to Greater Manchester Police, to go to Andy Burnham, the Police and Crime Commissioner, the Kate Green, the deputy. She also reported to her MP, Jim McMahon, and, you know, shockingly, her complaint was sent straight back into the department that protects MPs and senior public figures. I think what the public see now is, you know, they're catching up with what I thought when I resigned from Greater Manchester Police, in all honesty, Peter. I was shocked 10 years ago, well, 12 years ago. I'm not shocked anymore, but my role and the job of my charity is to join the dots, to make sure that the public can see these are not just an isolated mistake. It's a systemic failure that is deliberate in silencing victims who shouldn't have to fight for years and years to have their cases reinvestigated. You know, even Amelia's social services records have gone astray. Many of the cases I've been involved in, you know, when it boils down to it, you try and get the documentation, it's gone missing.
Well,
or it's
even
not there.
I was reading as well about her sexual health records. That could form key evidence in this case. And as you say, it is a systematic problem. Amelia told The Sun, I have lost any shred of trust I had in Greater Manchester Police, politicians or any of the authorities. Do you have trust in them, Maggie? Do you have trust in this inquiry that's going to happen?
Well, actually, Amelia is one of our umbrella group of survivors that we took to meet Baroness Longfield, and we are working with that inquiry to the very best of our ability. But unfortunately, I have no no trust in any of them anymore. They will not willingly act unless they are dragged kicking and screaming to a place where they have no choice. So, you know, there was another story that I worked on that shows, you know, Keir Starmer was heavily involved in the poor decision making in the Rochdale case. In fact, he claims ownership for it.
Yes, I was reading about that in the Express. Can you just explain that to people who perhaps didn't pick up the Express today?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I've been, you know, I resigned because of that case, because I saw a young girl portrayed as a paedophile without even being arrested or cautioned or being made aware. Another little girl who was made pregnant at 13, where her abuser was not charged with rape. He was charged with conspiracy to commit sexual activity with a child, even though we had a fetus. And Keir Starmer has claimed credit for that Rochdale job being a fantastic job. So
and it's interesting as well when it comes to Mandelson as well. He says, he told Beth Rigby of Sky News recently that he said he spent 2 decades fighting violence against women and girls, and he felt he beat himself up metaphorically about the Mandelson scandal because of all the amazing work he felt that he had done in regard to violence against women and girls. Clearly, you don't think he has a record to be proud of.
No, I'm sorry, I don't hold him solely. The only person with huge should really be ashamed of their role in these cases, because they are the people in power. I would say that they have all massively abused their power and thrown these children under the bus. And I didn't need to be a serving detective to know that this was wrong. It's immoral, it's inhumane, and it simply is wrong. It's an abuse of power. And now I do think that because we are far more aware and able to access information more easily than we were in the past, I think that these things are all coming home to roost. And I want to see, you know, criminal accountability. I want to see senior public servants held criminally to account for their deliberate neglect of duty over decades in failing children. Amelia is one in a long line. You know, my job in the foundation is to allow these children, or they're now adults, to have a platform to tell their stories. And my job is to show that they are not isolated incidents and start to continue to keep scratching the surface bit by bit. The public are seeing through. What we need is independent scrutiny, really, Peter. We need an independent body, not the IOPC, not the police marking their own homework, not a police and crime commissioner that actually is about as much use as a chocolate fireguard, because the only thing they can do is sack a chief constable, and that rarely happens. We need individuals who care, who are not, you know, part of the establishment, who are not part of the old boys network. And that is really, for me, the only thing that will really lead to change and criminal accountability.
I just want to read you out 2 statements, one from the Greater Manchester Police. We're committed to working closely with Amelia at her pace and to continue providing her specialist support while pursuing all available lines of inquiry to identify perpetrators and bring them to long-awaited justice. This includes identifying any officers from that time or anyone in positions of power. All lines of inquiry will be followed as we investigate without fear or favour, regardless of status. The Home Office added, these allegations are heinous. The sexual abuse of children is one of the most horrific crimes imaginable, and we will do everything in our power to stop these crimes from happening. We have set up the independent inquiry into grooming gangs with full statutory powers to uncover the truth and provide answers that survivors of these crimes have long campaigned for. Warm words from both Greater Manchester Police and the Home Office. Do you feel they're actually on your side?
It's nonsense. I mean, everybody listening to your story now will have heard those same sentences thousands of times.
Yes, they will.
Mean nothing. They are empty words. You know, we've been fighting with Amelia for 4 years. 4 years. It doesn't take 4 years to listen to a victim. There is no help available for victims. And I don't just mean within Greater Manchester Police, I mean within the country. We're supporting victims and survivors with emotional support. Victims who have been waiting 7 years for some kind of counselling or therapy. It is not there. The whole system is broken. The courts have got 5-year delays. We've got cases now that have been delayed and delayed and delayed, and that is nothing to do with juries, Peter. That's a red herring. It's because they won't invest in the courts. We've got, 25% of courtrooms are vacant every day because they don't have the staff in them. There is antiquated admin systems. People turn up at court and it's been cancelled. It is shambolic. And that goes for complaints processes, for investigations, for policing being on its knees. And I'm not blaming individual police officers. I am blaming those at the top, the government, the Home Office, chief constables. They should be investing. They should be rewarding public servants who put their lives on the line. As it is, we are not paying enough. We are not training properly. And the consequences that victims like Amelia are being left dangling for years on end before they ever have any glimpse of any kind of justice. And that is the truth.
We're talking about two completely separate stories, are the main things that we're talking about on the programme this evening. Obviously, what happened to Amelia, that heinous series of crimes that she was a victim of. We're also talking about something which might not seem that serious, and certainly isn't as serious, and I'm not comparing the two by any stretch of the imagination. I would never do that. But I think they both illustrate the point. We've been talking a lot about a Waitrose employee who tackled a shoplifter. He's been sacked because of that, for doing the right thing. I'm 100% not comparing the two stories, but there is a little thread between the two of them, and that is that when you do the right thing, when you call this out, when you do what you've done, Maggie, over years now, there's no actual reward. There's no actual reason where people say, that's a good thing, let's act on that, let's change that, let's make it right. And there is such a topsy-turvy nature in morality in our society where people like Amelia aren't believed and said, oh my goodness, that is the most awful thing, let's do all we can to stop that happening again. It's from the bottom to the top. It's small things like shoplifting. It's huge, life-changing things like rape. It's everywhere, Maggie. How do we get this back? How do we change this?
I think it really is a complete overhaul of we're talking about, theft and rape and criminality. It's an overhaul of the whole criminal justice system from top to bottom. It really is broken, and it's been neglected for decades. Yeah. And so we're attracting, young PCs who apply with, hope of dedicating their lives to making a difference. They get into an organisation that throws them under a bus, in all honesty, and the retention rate is abysmal. Experienced detectives and officers are leaving in their droves, Pensions Maggie, are now not what they were.
I don't mean to cut you off, Maggie, but I know you've got to go to another interview. I don't want to keep you late. Maggie Oliver, thank you so much. That's Maggie Oliver there, who's a former detective constable in Greater Manchester Police. She's a whistleblower on the Rochdale grooming gangs case and founder of the Maggie Oliver Foundation. What a great woman, what a brilliant campaigner, and so much of what she says is just so absolutely spot on common sense that so much of our rulers, so much of those people who are on the inside just do not get. They want to ignore it. They want it to go away, essentially, although they've set up this inquiry, which Maggie herself says, look, let's get the results of that. Dave in Lancashire says, we've got to the stage in this country where the police are not interested in solving crimes anymore. It's too much like hard work, plus it doesn't bring in revenue. But 3 miles an hour over the speed limit and you're pursued like a dangerous criminal. The whole world needs to be flipped 180 degrees. God help us, says Dave in Lancashire. Couldn't have put it better myself. Lots to come. We're going to speak to the Conservative MP, Shadow Home Office Minister Matt Vickers. He's Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party as well. There's a story today. The headline is top Tory blasted for flogging £5 tickets to constituents who want to meet him. Unsurprisingly, there's perhaps a little bit more to it, and we'll get to the bottom of that story, as we always do on this programme, with Matt Vickers in just a second. Stay with us.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle from Suits. That's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel.
Raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of this desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Alex in Cardiff has been in touch and says Maggie Oliver is a true hero. She deserves to be honoured. We need people like her as MPs. Alex couldn't agree more. David says Mayor Khan says there are no grooming rapists in London, so Amelia is obviously mistaken. Well, she's talking about Greater Manchester Police, of course, but the point is a good one, David. Britain and the country's politicians are morally bankrupt, says David. Well, some are, some aren't. Tanya says, why can't Ebbs or anyone on the left admit Trump is doing the West a huge favour by weakening Iran and destroying their nuclear capability? Iran hates the West and would gladly destroy us. And another person says the trouble with Trump is he thinks everyone thinks like he does. The reason he's struggling with the Iranian regime is because he doesn't understand martyrdom. He can't understand the way they think. Well, we'll talk more about Trump and World War III, but the arguably much more important matter of whether people had to pay £5 to meet Matt Vickers is what we're going to talk about now. This is a Mirror exclusive. Top Tory blasted for flogging £5 tickets to constituents who want to meet him. Conservative Party Deputy Chairman Matt Vickers accused of a cash grab after advertising a coffee morning for his Stockton West constituents after selling tickets for a £5. They would go to his campaign fund, and one of his opponents, Councillor Lisa Evans, who's the leader of Stockton Borough Council, hit out at the Tory MP and said, now Fat Cat Matt wants to charge Stockton residents just to speak to their own MP. I can tell you right now that Matt Vickers is with us. No money has changed hands for this interview. You've even got a coffee. We're charging you £5 for that. Matt, what is the truth of this story?
Do you know what? When people read papers, they believe some of the absolute bull poop that's in them. I don't want you to ever believe anything from the Mirror. You shouldn't wipe your backside with it. It's absolute garbage. I've never seen a story more contorted, confected, contrived than this absolute rubbish.
Now, hold on. There was a coffee morning.
There is a coffee morning.
There is. Well, it hasn't happened yet. Okay. It's a sellout. Well, that's because you've been charging people £5. Right. So there is a coffee morning. You did say to people, you can meet me there. It is a fundraiser for your campaign fund.
I mean, it's not going to raise many money, really.
Okay, well, it's raising some money. Yeah. So tell us what the truth is of all of this.
In essence, their line is the fact that people apparently have to pay to see me. So
right.
You know lots of MPs. You know what they do and don't do in recess. Some of them will be sat on a beach. Tomorrow, I'll be knocking on doors. On Wednesday, I'll be at that coffee morning. On Thursday, I've got an actual surgery. So anybody who lives in my patch, who emails or telephones me, can raise an issue with me. I take up with them. Thursday this week, I'll be meeting a stack of them to do that.
For free?
I'll be knocking for free, and then I'll be knocking on doors again on Friday. On Saturday morning, in fact, at some point on Friday, I'll be delivering leaflets because I've got community lit pick on Saturday morning when people could come along and meet me and chat to me there.
And help you pick up litter.
And then I'll be having one of my regular pop-up surgeries that I have in supermarkets and town centres so that people can come and speak to me. I'm probably, if you spoke to people in my constituency, a lot of them tell them they're sick of the sight of me, particularly if they listen to talk too often.
Yes.
I am a very active MP. I put myself out there. People do not have to pay to see me. And those individuals spinning this story know that. There is a coffee morning on Wednesday in a village hall in my constituency. We put letters out to tell people about it. In fact, on the letter it says, this is not a replacement for my surgeries. If you have an issue, get in touch and book a surgery slot. This is a social event. I'd heard about some other MP had tried it. They thought it worked. And as an MP, you want to get involved with as many different groups as possible. We've had surgeries in the pubs that suit certain people. We've had surgeries in the high street. Some people are quite happy to come and talk to me in the high street or in the supermarket. This hits a different crowd, and it definitely does, because it is a sellout. There's a crowd of people who haven't been to other events who want to come and have a chit-chat over a coffee and cake I think it's a really good positive thing. And actually, when you look at the critics in there, Lisa Evans calling me a fat cat. This woman who is, might I say, is very well fed at the expense of the taxpayer. She goes to VIP events across the country. She's claimed for her sandwiches from Pet. She's claimed for her steak dinners. She's like the worst person on earth ever to criticise. She also supports the idea that the council, despite charging some of the highest council tax in the country, should fly people out to watch shows and audition them for their own festival in Stockholm. They've not heard of YouTube. Utterly appalling.
So when you Fat Cat Matt say, which is your name from now on, now Fat Cat Matt wants to charge Stockton residents just to speak to their own MP. Stockton Tories should remember they are elected to serve the public, not profit from them. I mean,
there is no profit from it.
Well, there is, because it would go to your campaign fund. I mean, there is. It's not in your pocket, but
also, so I won't be getting money out of it. But that money, we keep calling it campaign, but that money is the money that paid for the letters that got delivered through the houses. There is no, and it would pay for the coffee and the cakes. And if there's any left, we might be able to put more leaflets out next time to tell people about the next event where they can make. Nobody's taking any money home from this. And actually, I don't think there's anything to be made out of a fiver. I don't think there's any profit going to be left, but
okay.
I think it's better to be upfront with people about what's going on.
And in fairness, you've done that. You've given the full thought on all of that. I should read out what Luke Meyer, the Labour MP for Middlesbrough South and East Cleveland, has said. Holding a coffee morning that doubles as a campaign fundraiser is frankly outrageous. Constituents should never be asked to pay just to raise issues with their MP or have their voices heard. Being an MP is a public service and a privilege, not a pay-to-access role. Local engagement should be open and accessible, not limited to those who can afford a ticket. It's not limited to those.
It's not limited to those. They can speak. But also, a lot of those MPs, in fact, you should ask Luke Meyer, you should ask Chris MacDonald, whatever he's called, what fundraisers they've had in recent times. I think you'd probably find they charge more than a fiver and invite people along.
He said, different game. Chris MacDonald says you're hidden behind a paywall.
So Chris MacDonald, he is an interesting character, Chris MacDonald, Mr. Sunderland. He doesn't live locally. His constituents who don't know they complain about him all the time. He's dreadful. This is a guy, he's trying to put you out of business. He's charged the taxpayer to set him up a studio for his own personal podcast. I think that's appalling. I don't think the taxpayer should pay for food and drink. I don't think it should pay for his podcast studio. If people want to go along to a social event, have coffee and cake.
What do you actually claim for when you're claiming expenses? What do you claim for?
I claim for staff wages, staff who reply to all the casework that comes in. We get envelopes that we can post things out to people if they're written to us. We get telephones. We hire an office that these guys can work in to respond to all that case. A huge number of, some of these caseworkers in constituencies are unsung heroes. They work they do every day with some of the most vulnerable people in society. To support them in all sorts of ways is not recognised.
You presumably, I think that there are so many constituency workers for lots of different parties, by the way, who do a great job, and their job is to help anybody. But you claim for train fares, presumably, up to your constituency. Do you ever claim for food?
Never claim for food.
You never claim for food?
I've made a fast and hard rule about that. I just don't think
accommodation in London?
Accommodation, yeah.
Okay, so what do you stay in a hotel? Do you have a flat?
I stay in a flat. Okay. It's not a very nice flat.
Right.
It's central though, it's very accessible and it works well.
All right. And all of that is public? All of that
is public, it's all there on the record. Yeah. I mean, actually, there is a debate. Some people might think that millionaires should be MPs, and that might be a good thing. Some people think if you want people like me from Stockton to be able to... Are you
not a millionaire, despite your expensive coffee mornings? Despite your profiteering.
I can see
your
how
Nescafe profiteering.
I mean, I wouldn't ever dare to consider trying to rent a flat in London as well as have a home. It is expensive. I mean, there are people out there now struggling in all sorts of jobs in central London to get on the housing ladder. It's a really expensive thing. If you tell people who put their head above the parapet and take the random abuse and contorted stories from the likes of the Mirror, that they've somehow got to find some rich, wealthy person to pay for them a flat or a hotel in London, it adds up. I mean, I'm not going to play a violin for MPs.
Yeah,
we do okay. We're very comfortable.
Well, as always, it goes back to that documentary about politics called The Thick of It. I'm sure you've seen that, where there was a minister in that, a fictional minister, complaining about his pay, and Malcolm Tucker, who's the sort of number 10 enforcer, says the public want you to live in a cave and eat grass. So
I think MPs are comfortably paid. But I think if you said they can't have expenses to employ staff to do casework, they can't have a place to live in London when they have to come down, it wouldn't quite work, I don't think.
Yeah. I think I agree with you on that. What do you think about what Fat Cat Matt has said? 0344 499 1000. Let's talk about an actual proper story, and this is the Waitrose employee sacked after stopping a shoplifter from taking Easter eggs. This is Walter Smith. We've already had someone who knows him, who is a customer at the local Waitrose, a disabled woman who rang in and said this guy Walter Smith, total gentleman, actually helped her with her bags every time, known her for nearly 2 decades, helped her out to her car and helped her with those with that shopping. I mean, it's just upside down, topsy-turvy, crazy stuff.
It's infuriating, isn't it? But it's about what sort of society do we want to live in. This guy, loyal Waitrose worker, 17 years he's worked there. By all accounts, incredible employee who worked very hard. Actually cares about the world around him, cares about the fact that this stuff, people are coming in, stealing things. What does it say about society if we just turn a blind eye and let that go on? This guy stood up for what he thought was right, did the right thing, and then Waitrose seemed to have come out with this perverse decision to sack, not a bonus, not a thank you, no medal, not sacked. It's ridiculous, it's appalling. As a society, if we keep turning a blind eye to criminality like this, it will only get worse. And actually it is getting worse. We're seeing the number of shop theft, the amount of shoplifting, robbery against business, a lot of it's branded as now. We're seeing it spiral. And the reason why that is because there are challenges within society, but more largely, there are 1,318 less police on London streets now than there was a year ago. Police desks are being shut.
Theresa May took 20,000 police officers off
and
the street.
And the last Conservative government brought policing numbers to a record. There were more police on the streets than ever before when I was an MP.
And they're very inexperienced and have a lot more to do. Sorry,
but less of them isn't going to help. 1,318 less of them, and all those police stations across London closed by Mayor Sadiq Khan. It's a disaster.
Walker Smith is his name. Apologies, not Walter Smith. Walker Smith was a shop assistant at that branch of Waitrose in Clapham Junction in South London. What should Waitrose do now?
I think they should reinstate him. I think they should apologise. I think they should get him around the table, apologise for what they've done, reinstate him, and actually. Shop workers out there I worked in shops. I've had the tussles with shoplifters.
What did you do when you saw someone shoplifting?
I had the tussles. Did you hear about Kemi talking about this the other day?
Yeah, I did actually.
She said that we should support people. We should celebrate people who step in.
So when you say a tussle, like how physical would it get?
It starts with you engaging. So sometimes people will just go on to the next shop instead of speaking to the person. Actually, it starts with you calling that behaviour out and saying it's not acceptable. It then probably carries on to a point where you might get between them and the door to indicate that you're not willing to let it happen. Shop workers are young, old, of all sorts of shapes, sizes, varieties and ages, and they've got to know their limits. They've also got to know, back when I was doing this, there was probably less knives around, there was probably less needles around. People were in a different sense when I was doing some of that scuffling. It doesn't mean that we should just turn a blind eye. People have to do what they know they can do within their own abilities and do it safely.
Street fighter and fat cat Matt Vickers, Deputy Chairman of the Conservative Party, thank you for joining us. He's finishing his coffee. Faith, the producer, be sure to get a fiver from him on the way out. Lots more to discuss. With another MP in just a second, actually, Carl Turner, the independent MP for Hull East. He's been suspended from the Labour Party. We'll find out why in just a second and give me your reaction to everything Matt's been saying and everything Carl will say. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And we'll be talking to Petri a little bit later on about the subjects on her show. I would imagine the Waitrose debacle about this guy, Walker Smith, who has tackled a shoplifter and been sacked for his efforts after 17 years loyal service to Waitrose. We had someone on earlier on, a caller who has dealt with him before, who has had her shopping carried to her car by Walker Smith, who called him, as she put it, an absolute gentleman. Thank you to Alex in Cardiff, who says, why can't they make Maggie Oliver a policing czar and get the system changed from top to bottom so we can have a normal country and society back from this wasteland it's becoming? Simon in Manningtree says, employees who can't act against crime, security guards who don't protect a store, police who don't attend an incident, an army and defence that is pretty much non-existent. A perfect advertisement to all those countries and those who are here illegally who want to harm us. We are a sitting duck waiting for something major to happen, says Simon in Manningtree. Take more calls, text, tweets and voice notes as the show goes on, 0344 499 1000. But I want to talk to Carl Turner MP now. He was a Labour MP. He's been suspended from the Parliamentary Labour Party. He's lost the whip, that's the kind of technical term. And he's with me now, and it's really interesting because he's been a critic of Keir Starmer, including on my programmes, and now has been suspended from the Labour Party parliamentarily anyway. Carl, you're very welcome to the programme. Can you tell me what's been happening to you in the last few weeks? Because there's been some really serious, poisonous criticism of you that has appeared often anonymously in newspapers. What's it been like?
Well, good evening, Peter, and thanks for inviting me on. Well, look, there's been briefings behind the scenes. Look, I'm not a snowflake. I understand the cut and thrust of politics. It's a difficult gig, and I've been a whip in the whip's office for 7 years on and off. So I understand the tricks that whips have to do and get up to. But when there's briefings about mental health, I think it's below the belt, frankly.
And just tell us about that specifically in regard to your mental health.
Well, journalists were briefed that I was quote unquote nuts, and I think one journalist was told that I was on suicide watch, and that the fact that I was objecting to the jury trial curtailment was down to my mental poor health and not due to anything other than that. I obviously raised this with the Chief Whip. I've got the receipts for that. I contacted the Chief Whip on a couple of, more than a few occasions to ask them to have this stuff stopped. It never stopped. The Chief Whip did say to me, though, that he would investigate the briefings, which he accepted and acknowledged were happening, but never did come back to me on any investigation. Now, I also contacted the Prime Minister directly and said, look, this is happening to me. It was at the time, Peter, when the Labour Party and members of Parliament, ministers, were criticising Kemi Badenoch, rightly, I thought, for briefing that Suella Braverman was suffering mental health, and that was part of the reason why she'd left to the
this is absurd, Carl, because we are 16, 17, 18 years on from when Gordon Brown was, critics of Gordon Brown said he had psychological flaws. He was on apparently depression medication at the time. I'm on depression medication. I've been on depression medication for the last 15 years. It has zero impact. In fact, it helps me do my job rather than makes it more difficult for me to do my job. You have been very, very critical of Keir Starmer on jury trials. You've been very critical of Morgan McSweeney. You said you didn't believe that he had lost his phone, for example. You're obviously totally entitled to those opinions. You've been critical about the whole Lord Mandelson scandal and so on. Is that what this is about? Is it they just want to shut you down and shut you off?
I'm fairly convinced that this is about jury trials in the main. There was some suggestion that I'd been rude to parliamentary colleagues in the chamber of the House of Commons on the Opposition Day debate, which was on the 7th of January. I challenged that with the Chief Whip. I said, Tell me what the complaints are. Tell me what the conduct is. I need to improve my conduct. Please specify. Give me the particulars that I need to go and improve upon.
Carl, do you need to improve your conduct? Do you think you've been over the top in the last... I'm not excusing any of this behaviour. I've got every sympathy with you. We disagree with a lot politically, but I think we can absolutely agree that people should be treated normally like human beings, including by their colleagues, for goodness sake. Have there been times when you've been over the top, do you think, including with colleagues?
I think I've been incredibly upset about the jury trial curtailment. I'm a friend of David Lammy. I always considered to be his friend and him mine. And I'd like to have been in a position where I was negotiating the position with David directly. David Lammy was unable to speak to me all the time Max Sweeney was in post. And as soon as he left number 10 Downing Street, he was then allowed to have a conversation with me. And I spoke to him prior to the debate at second reading, where I agreed to abstain and take my rebellion into abstention rather than voting against the government on the basis that would get a member on the Public Bill Committee. That happened. You know, it wasn't the member that was put forward by the rebellion group, but it was a member on the Bill Committee nonetheless, somebody who's opposed to these proposals. But look, I don't think my conduct has been bad in any way. The first suggestion was that I described ministers of being lazy. This was to Sky News, Sam Coates, who's a very well experienced, very well respected political journalist. That interview is available online. I never said any such thing. I said, when I was asked the question, why do you think the government are doing this? I said, laziness, that Leveson had done a lot of work, but ministers hadn't done enough to find the alternatives without going to act jury trials in a massive number of cases, serious criminal offences where the defendant in question could go to prison for as much as 3 years. Now, any other suggestion thereafter has been speculative, it's been rumour. I've never had a row with any MP whatsoever about jury trial curtailment. I was in the Commons chamber, the Speaker of the Commons was in there, sitting behind me was the chair of the Select Committee. A whip came to me to speak to me prior to me speaking. There is absolutely no way I was rude to any individual in that debate. It's just not true. But I don't know what this is about, apart from the fact that I went on to say that Max Swindle, that's what I described him as, on social media, I didn't believe him. I don't think the vast majority of the public believe him.
I am not for a second excusing any of the dreadful things that have been said, including about your mental health, which is absolutely nobody's business but your own, and I'm not even going to ask you about that. What I would say is, if you're Keir Starmer, imagine you're Keir Starmer, you're sitting there saying, you know, here's Carl Turner, who says he's a friend of mine, who says that, you know, I have almost taken Labour to the point of no return, who calls my chief advisor and friend McSwindle, who says that not only he's lying, in your view, about his phone being stolen, but I, Keir Starmer, am lying for talking about it and answering questions about it. Surely, at that point, you say, hold on a second, this guy's not on our side.
Listen, I've not accused the Prime Minister of lying. I believe
he's repeated what Morgan McSweeney has told him.
No, he didn't.
He's accepted that the mobile phone was stolen.
What he said is that this was an honorary thing. The mobile phone was stolen. It was reported to the police. Max Sweeney then went back to number 10 and explained the same to security people. That's what the Prime Minister said. I don't doubt.
He accepts his story, though. He accepts his story.
Well, I don't doubt that's what happened. I think Mr. Max Sweeney did all of the things the Prime Minister described. What I'm saying is, I don't believe he had the phone stolen. That's a matter of opinion, which I'm entitled to have, and I'm entitled to verbalise. I don't say the PM has lied. I don't suggest for a second that the Prime Minister has not believed Mr. Max Sweeney. The point is, I don't believe it, and my wider point is, good people, good ministers, people who I have a lot of respect for, are having to go out onto the telly, having read the Parliamentary Labour Party briefing, and repeat the stuff that Max Sweeney has said. I don't believe it. I think we'd be served better if we went out on the telly and on the radio and said, actually, this is what Mr. Max Sweeney says However, the police are now investigating, having taken a statement from Mr. McSweeney, and we'll see what they find. That's what I would be saying. I think that's more credible. I think we'd be respected by the British public better if we're just upfront and honest.
What happens now, Carl?
Well, look, I'm waiting to see what happens next. The reality is, they said it was because I'd been disparaging about colleagues. I don't know the colleague that I've been disparaging about. They initially said it's because I described ministers as lazy. Again, that didn't happen. They now say it's because I've spoken to a man who described himself as an independent journalist. I admit I didn't research this character.
This is Judy McIntyre, I understand, a political activist, former parliamentary candidate for George Galloway's Workers' Party of Britain. He's been accused of spreading anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. I'm sure he would deny that, but you granted him an interview.
I did an interview with him. I spoke to the man for about 10 minutes. He repeated what I'd said verbatim, much of which I'd said was off the record, if I'm being honest with you. I was then contacted by a Secretary of State who said, look, he might have been misrepresenting you here. Just think about this. I then went to the guy. I said, look, you might have represented me. He texted me back on direct message and said he would look at that and put it right. I don't think he ever did. I'm not knocking him. Look, the point is, I've made the mistake of speaking to a journalist who happens to be an independent journalist, who happens to be a candidate against a colleague of mine in Parliament in 2024. I wished I'd not done it, but I don't detract from what I said to him about McSweeney. I happen to believe that it's unlikely that he's had his mobile phone snatched in a public place in the centre of London, and forgot to mention to the 999 operator that in fact he was the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister. That's unlikely for me.
I mean, well, hold on. You're saying it's unlikely. So, I mean, the Metropolitan Police were the organisation that released the transcript of that. Are they lying?
I don't think they're lying at all.
You think he made the call? You think he reported it? But you think he was lying when he said that?
Yeah, because if it was me reporting a mobile phone stolen, I would say to the operator, look, I'm to be an MP. I've got conversations on there with the Prime Minister and Secretaries of State. If I look at my phone now, I've got WhatsApp messages to various ministers.
Yeah.
I've got WhatsApp messages.
It was utterly bizarre that Morgan McSweeney didn't mention that.
I sent messages to the Prime Minister over this weekend.
Yeah.
Look, I'd expect somebody who'd had the phone nicked in those circumstances to say, look, there's stuff on there I'm a bit worried about. Could you track the CCTV, which happens to be plenty of it? Could you please help quickly? I'm really sorry that I'm having to ring 999, but I think this is really serious. And it might be a matter of national security. If I'd been in the boots of him, which is the Chief of Staff to the Prime Minister of this country. That's why I don't believe McSweeney. And I'm not going to be bullied into saying, oh, I've had a word with myself and I think I do believe him now. Just as I'm not going to be giving in on juries. It's the worst policy any government of any political persuasion could have mustered. And, in fact, the leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister campaigned between 1997 and 2007 to do away with single judge trials in Northern Ireland, but now that I'm saying we don't want them in England and Wales, I'm the guy with mental health problems, apparently.
Okay, well, just to give some context, the Metropolitan Police said the CCTV footage around Morgan McSweeney's theft was unusable. There wasn't enough there. But, Carl, that's sort of by the by. The final question I have for you is what we have on the screen is Carl Turner MP, Independent Hull East. Do you think the next time we chat, or in a week or two, it'll say Carl Turner MP, Labour, Hull East again?
I don't know. I hope it does, because I'm a Labour MP as far as I'm concerned. I'm still a member of the Labour Party, although I've got members of my party in East Hull who are resigning thick and fast as a result of the injustice they think has happened to me. But look, I'm not going to be saying sorry about any of the things I've said, which I've just repeated to you on here. I believe it to be the truth. It's my truth, and I'm sticking rigidly to it. I'm not going to be voting with the government on jury trial curtailment, for goodness sake. I think it's an abhorrent policy.
Although you abstained on the substantive vote. Now, you will say that you've got some concessions from them, and that's fine, but couldn't you just have voted against that?
I could have done, but I don't think it'd have been a good tactic.
Okay.
Because what we managed to get, Peter, was 91 Labour MPs to abstain and not support the government. Well, when you need to amend the bill at the next stage, after the committee stage and at report stage, you need to build that mass of members to actually vote to amend the bill. That's what my plan is to do, and I think we'll succeed. If we don't succeed in the Commons, by the way, I'm fairly confident we'll succeed in the House of Lords. This stuff was never in the manifesto. So what do they want from me? Is it because I've said disparaging things about colleagues? Well, tell me where they are. Tell me who they are. Tell me what I've said. Is it because I've spoken to a journalist who stood against a Labour MP? Tell me if that's the thing. I can make an apology for that. Look, I admit that I ought to have done my research. That's the truth. However, there's been bigger mistakes made by other people. You know, we're talking about me making this mistake when in fact the Prime Minister made the mistake, according to him, the biggest mistake he's ever made in appointing Peter Mandelson. What on earth? What on earth have I done wrong? On that basis, is Keir Starmer going to lose the whip next minute? It's ridiculous.
Carl, listen, thank you. Keep us updated with what goes on. Very interesting to talk to you. Carl Turner MP, currently the independent MP for Hull East. What do you think about what he said? 0344 499 1000. We'll take your calls after the break here on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thank you to everybody who has been in touch, including Joanna in Salisbury. Says, hi, Cardi P. Hi, Joanna. I have so much respect for Maggie Oliver. Everything is rotten to the core. The terrible event of a young girl trafficked into the heart of government just adds to the fuel of why this has been covered up. Then the newspaper article, the weekend of Starmer's cover-up when he was in the CPS. Will there ever be justice? So many people getting in touch with all sorts of different views, and On Trump as well, Elisa says, I watched the whole of Trump's press conference. I urge everyone to revisit it, including his answers to questions. It brings clarity to some of the doubters. Yes, I know his language can be shocking to us who are used to so-called diplomacy, but he's absolutely doing the right thing in this war, and I fully back him, says Elisa. Nat in Tel Aviv says, everyone and their dog has a view on our war, yet it's we who are losing sleep and worse lives. I do so hope it's for the greater good, but to be honest with you, I'm fast losing hope. Thanks for keeping me company during these mad times. Well, Nat, I'm glad that the show does that. Thank you also to the texter who says, I'm very happy to buy Matt Vickers a coffee or drink of his choosing. There we are, the Matt Vickers fan club. Not perhaps that large. Chris is in Surrey on his views on this bizarre story about the Waitrose employee sacked after stopping a shoplifter from taking Easter eggs. That's Walker Smith, 54-year-old man, described by someone who knows him earlier on in the programme, a caller, as a total gentleman. Chris, what's your view on this? You're very welcome to the programme.
Oh, hi, Peter. Thank you. It's, from my opinion, it's kind of looking rather at the macro view of it, as in it's a triple-edged sword. So, first of all, it's a bad look on societal breakdown. If we're allowing these things to just happen with no recourse because the police don't want to get involved, and then people who do want to get involved are punished for it, that only becomes an ever-decreasing circle for it. The second side is, given the airtime that this is getting in the press, it then just drives the behaviour more. So the items you see that were happening in like Milton Keynes and in Clapham, etc.
But we should discuss it, Chris. We're discussing it now, and everything you say is, I totally agree with what you're saying there, but it's right that we discuss this because it is so shocking and just plain wrong.
Oh, absolutely. There's no denying it at all. But it starts to drive as it reinforces the behaviour, and knowing that also this then leads on to the third element of it. I was going to add the third edge of the sword is the fact that obviously the things like inflation is based on certain key items that are price indexed. As those go up, as the shops don't want to make a loss overall for the produce they have, that then drives up inflation. Inflation then is linked to interest rates, and the whole. It's the rot at the bottom that is causing the problems at the top.
Chris, so much common sense in what you say. Thank you so much for it. That's Chris and Surrey. Give me a ring anytime, Chris. Always worth listening to what you have to say. Mark's in Lincolnshire and has given me a ring on 0344 499 1000. I think it's Trump who's on your mind, Mark.
Hi there, Peter.
Hi.
I wouldn't say I'm sat awake all night thinking of Donald Trump. Yeah, I put a bit of thought into this whole situation that's going on. I think Trump seems to be getting himself, stuck between a rock and a hard place, I think, more than anything. I don't think he really knows how to get out of this. I think he's getting a lot of manipulation, pressure, whatever you want to call it, from Israel to go a bit further. I think they desperately do want regime change in Iran.
But if he's saying the entire country could be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night, it's not great for the innocent people who live there who are dealing with this horrendous and repressive regime.
Well, it isn't. It's not good for them to hear Donald Trump keep making threats like this, which it's a paper-toothed tiger, isn't it? Really, at the end of the day, that kind of threat, because he's not going to do that in a night, which is what he was claiming. I think it's just ridiculous.
Well, it's impossible. It's also impossible even for the American military.
The reality is, if you want a regime change over there, the only way you're actually going to get that is boots on the ground. We all know that. You can't bomb it. You can't bomb a regime change into action. It's not going to happen that way. The other problem that you've got is if you overbomb these people and you start hitting their infrastructure, you basically will kill off any chance of any kind of regime change, because the people will work against you at that point. They will start to see you as an enemy, and they will unite behind whatever leadership they have. Because once their lives are starting to be made incredibly difficult, which obviously their lives are pretty rubbish as it is already, but you've also got so many different issues within Iran. At the end of the day, you've got the many people that rely on the regime and the IRGC and what have you, through families and all the rest of it. Then you've got this apparently, majority of people that want a regime change. But does anybody really know how many people that actually is? what the actual percentage in Iran is that want an actual regime
There's certainly people who want a regime change. There's certainly people who have protested against that horrendous regime and with, taking their lives, Mark, in their hands, and thousands, tens of thousands of them have been killed for the privilege. Mark, listen, thanks for all your thoughts on that. Whatever you think about what he has to say, 0344 499 1000. We'll speak to Jonathan Sacerdoti, the writer and broadcaster, about so many of the issues we've been talking about tonight in just a minute. And just before we go to the news, let me tell you about the chance you have to win a life-changing £20,000, completely tax-free here on Talk. That's £20,000 straight into your bank account. You can spend it, you can save it, you can splash it, whatever you want to do, it's entirely up to you. Here is how you could be into it with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, within the last few minutes, the wireless festival boss has defended Kanye West appearing at his festival. It looks as if he wants it to go ahead. I'll read that out in total in a minute. It's Melvin Ben, as his name is, a Festival Republic managing director. We'll see what is happening with that in a second. We'll talk to Jonathan Sacerdoti about that. Also, the London Council under fire for twinning with the Palestinian town. We'll talk about the fourth suspect arrested over a Jewish charity ambulance arson attack after those ambulances were attacked last week. Also this hour, we'll be talking to a guy called Wiz Buckley. He is a former fighter pilot. He now works with people who have traumatic brain injury. He'll be talking us through everything that will have happened with this dramatic rescue that Donald Trump has been talking about a bit earlier on in the evening. We'll take your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes. The 9 o'clock hour, as you know, is when we put lots of time into making sure your voice is heard. So pick up the phone right now. 0344 499 1000 is the number to call. You can text me 87222 with the word talk in your text. You can tweet me at talkTV. Follow me at Peter Cardwell. Cardwell. Send me a WhatsApp voice note, less than a minute please, on the main number. You can also send me a WhatsApp text message on the main number, or give me a ring on the main number, which is of course 0344 499 1000. Whatever you want to say, however you want to say it, whatever's on the tip of your tongue, let me know here in the Evening Exchange, and we will make sure that it is broadcast. So much to discuss. Stay with us right through to 10 o'clock here on Talk. Well, as I said, the Festival Republic Managing Director Melvin Benn has released a statement in the last few minutes. He says, "I am a deeply committed anti-fascist and have been all my adult life." This is, I should say, the organiser of the Wireless Festival, where Kanye West is due to headline for 3 nights in the summer. Now the Managing Director, Melvin Benn, has said, "I'm a deeply committed anti-fascist and have been all my adult life. I lived on a kibbutz for many months in the 1970s that was attacked on the 7th of October. I am pro-Jew and the Jewish state while being equally committed to a Palestinian state. Having had a person in my life for the last 15 years who suffers from mental illness, I've witnessed many episodes of despicable behaviour that I've had to forgive and move on from. If I wasn't before, I've become a person of forgiveness and hope in all aspects of my life, including work." What Ye, which is what Kanye West is sometimes known as, has said in the past about Jews and Hitler is as abhorrent to me as it is to the Jewish community. The Prime Minister and others have also commented and taken him at his word to Ye now also. Ye's music is played on commercial radio stations in this country. It is available via live streams and downloads in this country without comment or vitriol from anyone, and he has a legal right to come into the country and to perform in this country. Well, he may not have, actually, because the Home Office now have this under review, but that's a point that we'll get into in a second with Jonathan Sacerdoti. I'm going to read the rest of the statement now from Melvin Benn, who continues. "He is intended to come in and perform. We are not giving him a platform to extol opinions of whatever nature, only to perform the songs that are currently played on the radio stations in our country and the streaming platforms in our country and listened to and enjoyed by millions. Forgiveness and giving people a second chance are becoming a lost virtue in this ever-increasing divisive world." I think he means ever increasingly divisive world. "And I would ask people to reflect on the instant comments of disgust at the likelihood of him performing, as was mine, and offer some forgiveness and hope to him, as I have decided to do." That is Melvin Benn, the Festival Republic Managing Director. Let's put all those points to Jonathan Sacerdoti, the writer and broadcaster. Jonathan, what do you make of what Melvin Benn has said? You're very welcome to the programme this evening.
Thanks, Peter. Well, you know, I'm pleased he wants to give somebody a second chance, but I think Kanye West had many chances. And I think the defence that he was going through some sort of manic depressive episode is quite a pathetic one, to be honest. Not because I'm not sympathetic to people who have mental health problems, but because it was an episode that lasted long enough to write if we're here to discuss the disgusting things that this man has done and got rich off, we need to actually call them what they are. So that word alone and the Heil Hitler in a song that deliberately fetishized Nazism from a man who has also said that he was a Nazi and that he admired Nazism during this very long period of manic depression, which caused him to be a Nazi sympathizing, Nazi admiring anti-Semite in the things he said. I really don't understand why such a person should be really seen any differently from the other people who have been barred from entry into this country. And that's because our law allows the Home Secretary the right to bar foreign nationals who could potentially cause problems for the communities and for the British society in this country because they are, let's say, hate preachers. We've had hate preachers banned in this country because they give sermons which are hateful towards Jews for crowds of people who will find them influential. I don't really understand how it's any different for this man. This man is world famous for these things that he's doing. Crowds of people do want to come and hear what he has to say, and we have seen indeed that people act on what he says. I spoke about this earlier on a different channel, and the clip of that alone online has literally drawn out of the woodwork vile anti-Semitic pro-Nazi sentiment. It just shows that he is influential in this area.
And the point is as well that Melvin Benn cannot guarantee that Kanye West will go on and just sing his songs. This is a live event. This is someone who, despite and I mean, he's accepting, Melvin Benn is accepting that he's a volatile character. By his own admission, Kanye West is a volatile character. Melvin Benn accepts that and has made that part of his statement. He's also saying that, well, actually, all he's going to do is come on and play his songs. Well, if you're saying someone is a volatile character who has said these things and indeed apologised with that full-page apology in the Wall Street Journal, which he then rescinded, talking about his support for Hitler. This is Kanye West, of course. Well, actually, how can Melvin Benn, my question would be to Melvin Benn if I was interviewing him, I would say, how can you guarantee he doesn't go on that stage over 3 nights and just sing his songs? Surely there is at least the opportunity, by what Melvin Benn is saying, that Kanye West will start ranting about how Hitler's a marvellous human being.
Look, I think the point here is there are a few layers to this. I'm not one necessarily for banning people. I wouldn't suggest, for example, that we don't put on the operas of Wagner. Wagner, of course, Nazi sympathizer, Nazi. Those operas still get put on. I don't go and hear them because I have a personal objection to them. But also, I think they sound pretty horrific, and they have those sorts of connotations for me. So it's not necessarily about banning the work of an artist, if you can call this children's entertainer an artist. Pop music is a slightly different thing, but that might just be my snobbishness on this matter. What I'm trying to say is that this country has a law which allows hateful people who will stir up hatred from coming into the country. It allows us to bar them. So the Home Secretary is the person that I'm appealing to here, and the government. I want them to look at this and to say... And in fairness,
they are. We know the Home Office is considering this.
It's cut and dried that this is a person who has used a very, very big platform repeatedly. He sold items of clothing with swastikas on for money because he knows that this offensive behavior, this fetishization of the Holocaust, this anti-Semitic behavior gets attention from very, very dangerous parts of society, and it causes, at a time when Jews are feeling the pressure of anti-Semitism rising across the world, it causes a great deal of distress and danger, and it's not just being a snowflake here. Jews are literally being killed around the world. Synagogues are being burnt down at an alarming rate, or burnt at least, firebombed. We saw the ambulances, those 4 ambulances from a Jewish volunteer paramedic charity burnt recently in London. We saw people killed in a synagogue in Manchester on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the Jewish year, last year. So we are seeing these things happening, and I fail to understand how anybody could be in any doubt that a man who has literally made a song with the words Heil Hitler over and over again, who has declared himself in interviews and online to want DEFCON 3 on Jews and to be a Nazi and to have these feelings about Hitler. It doesn't matter if he then paid as part of the stunt for his attention for a full-page advert in a newspaper saying he didn't really mean it. None of that matters. What matters is that this is clearly an influential person who many, many people clearly are influenced by, will go and see, and may act on what they hear as a result of what he says, and that he has said these vile anti-Semitic, Holocaust-denying things. All of these things are true, so it shouldn't be a hard case, bearing in mind the other people they've banned in the past from entering the country, to draw a straight line between the two. I mean, we saw Geert Wilders some years ago banned from entering the country when he was coming to show a film critical of Islam to parliamentarians. Now, you may think that's right, you may think that's wrong, but that is available under law. We've seen Islamic hate preachers banned from the country.
As you correctly say, Jonathan, it is possible. Elle has been in touch and says, never forgive a Nazi, end of discussion. Very interesting point from Cara in County Down. I just want to, it's slightly lengthy, but I just want to read this out to you. Someone from Northern Ireland who says that the entire focus is on his anti-Semitism, but Kanye's glorification of Hitler includes Hitler's racism, homophobia, hatred, mass murder of other groups like disabled people, mentally ill. Kanye is not fit to have a festival platform for a number of reasons. This is not just about Jews. The coverage is all about anti-Semitism. It needs to be widened. Also, how are Kneecap headlining Coachella Festival in California this week? The UK terror charges are gone. That prevented their entry to the US concerts last year, but they're just back from a propaganda visit to Cuba, a sanctioned state. This person says, you know, if she had done that, she couldn't have entered America if she'd wanted to go on holiday there. Number of points there, but I think the key one being, this isn't just about anti-Semitism. There's so much more. And where are those disability rights charities? Where are those mental health charities? Where are those women's rights charities? Where are those LGBT charities? This is being left to people who are campaigners against anti-Semitism, and they are so easy for so much of those who hate people like you, Jonathan, and hate people like me, who stand up for Jewish people, you far more effectively than me, who can explain it away and say this is just a bunch of whingers.
Well, listen, I agree that the Holocaust is, and to praise Hitler and to praise the Holocaust or to deny the severity of it or whatever one might do, this is not just offensive to Jewish people, not just offensive to people from minority groups that were persecuted during that era, but offensive to anybody with a, you know, sound mind, anybody who's right thinking and fair. But as I keep saying, you know, we do have within our laws the power to stop hateful people who will cause problems in our society from entering the country, foreign nationals. In January this year, that's exactly what happened with Dr. Shadi El-Masri, a US Islamic preacher barred for defending Hamas and for promoting extremism and anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. We saw it used also this year with Eva Vladingerbroek, who was the Dutch activist whose ETA was revoked for anti-immigrant great replacement rhetoric. So the government can apply this across the board. They really must apply it in this case, because I think it is so clear what this man is about, what he said, how he goes back and forth on it and uses it as well just to increase our sense of repulsion at him, uses it for his own attention grabbing and for his own, you know, growing his own massive fortune. He is literally selling music, selling items of clothing that deliberately tap into the revulsion people feel about Nazism, but also the praise that some people will feel for Nazis and for Hitler because of the way he is praising them. People look to him as an icon of cool, as somebody to emulate, as somebody whose music they admire, of somebody whose views they might even admire. He's somebody who once fantasized that he could be the president of the United States. So this is an influential person, and therefore his praise of Hitler and his declarations of being a Nazi and his sale of swastika clothing is dangerous in the fact that it will influence people in this country at a time when we have a climate where there is a massive problem of anti-Semitism and racism against Jewish people. And for all those reasons, I really hope that they will stop him from entering this country. This is not just me being a snowflake. It's not me trying to limit people's free speech. It's none of those things. It's me trying to suggest that if we ban other hate preachers from coming into this country, we should recognise Kanye West as in that category as well and do the same for him. He has absolutely no right to enter Britain if he's going to spread these distinctly anti-British views. Britain stood up against Nazism and faced it down. It is not for entertainment now at a music festival for this to be, you know, this honour to be given to this person, for this adulation to be given to this person. It's quite shameful.
Okay. Jonathan, you're many, many things, but Jonathan Sackerduty, the snowflake, is not one that I've ever thought in my mind. Just before you go, just a quick thought on the London Council accused of marginalising the Jewish community, signing a twinning agreement with a Palestinian city whose officials have been accused of praising terrorists and celebrating the 7th of October attacks on Israel.
Yeah, well, Brent Council, where I actually live, did this, I think, some months ago. They slipped it through. It's one of the many kinds of methods of kind of infiltration of councils where I think they've been trying to slip these sorts of things through. What does Brent have in common with Nablus? Not really sure. I do know there is a group of people now, though, who are trying to take advantage of this wonderful twinning within Brent, who are running something called Fabulous in Nablus, which is an LGBTQIA+ delegation that they're hoping to organise that can go to Nablus and enjoy the cultural exchange. Because, of course, Brent does have great respect for and celebration of gay rights. And so it seems appropriate that anywhere they would twin with might want to do the same. So I look forward to seeing Brent Council throwing their weight behind the LGBTQIA+ culture and the activists within the borough who wish to go and celebrate their unique identity and culture there in Nablus, see what kind of welcome they get. And if those people don't get a good welcome, I think that might point out a good reason why Brent Council should not be taking this deliberately provocative Jew-baiting step. It's clearly designed to make people feel uncomfortable in a borough which has an enormous diversity of ethnicities, religions and opinions, and people managed to get along just fine without provocateurs throwing these sorts of grenades into the council activities just to try and alienate and upset each other. That shouldn't be happening, and Brent Council should know better than that.
Jonathan, I just have to pull you up on a point of fact there and correct you. It's actually the LGBTQIP2SAA community, so I'm happy to clarify that point, as I'm sure
I'm pleased that you clarified that. There's a few in there I'm a little bit out of date as an older person, I guess. I hadn't kept up with some of the Q's and the A's.
It's like someone's fallen asleep on a keyboard. Thank you, Jonathan, much appreciated. That is the LGBTQIP2SAA. I mean, it sounds like a sort of Wi-Fi password. Anyway, let me give you a little bit of an update about a further arrest made in relation to the Golders Green arson attack there. This is Counter-Terror Police investigating the arson attack on the volunteer-led ambulances run by the Jewish community in Golders Green. This is the morning of the 4th of April, Easter Saturday. Met officers at Westminster Magistrate Court arrested a 19-year-old man in relation to the ongoing investigation into that arson attack. And while attending the hearing of 3 other suspects, officers recognised the man who was suspected to be involved. He was arrested on suspicion of arson with intent to endanger life and has been bailed to a date in May. 3 other people have been charged in the connection with the incident, and we will of course keep you updated with all of that. But it is an active court case at the moment, so there's very little that I want to say about that, because we want to make sure that justice is served for all involved. We will talk to callers next. If you want to get your call in, please do give me a ring. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is sickening. The noose is tightening.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Thanks everybody who has been in touch, including Ashton, who says, "Hi Peter, I find it quite strange that they're quite willing to offer some forgiveness for Kanye West making disgusting anti-Semitic remarks. I wonder if he'd been asking if they'd have been the same, had the same forgiving nature if he'd made equally disgusting remarks about Muslims or another minority." Pete says, "Kanye West is an idiot. Hitler hated black people." Danny in Norwich says, "They gave that idiot Bob Villan multiple live shows." I think you're talking about Pascal Robinson Foster. He really hates it when people know his name is Pascal Robinson Foster, so just be careful when you're mentioning that his name's Pascal Robinson Foster, because Pascal Robinson Foster might be annoyed. We don't want that, even though he's a disgusting anti-Semite. What's the difference? Not sticking up for Kanye, but it's double standard, says Danny in Norwich. Danny, I know you're not sticking up for Kanye West at all, and your point is a good one, because I don't think Pascal Robinson Foster should be doing anything. I think he should be charged with incitement for shouting "death, death the IDF," which he just does with impunity because the CPS didn't charge him after that disgusting Glastonbury Festival display. Honestly, awful. Thank you to Leslie. He says, "It's despair at this country when a man is sacked for stopping a thief and military veterans are being hauled back into the court after serving Queen and country," says Leslie. And some people praising our headlines as well, our straps at the bottom of the screen if they're watching. MG says, "A good headline, nay to yay," and also "Ban Ye West," which is one that our colleague Gareth came up with. Let's speak to Debbie in Lincolnshire. He's given me a ring on 0344 499 1000 about what happened in Waitrose. We've been talking about the story all evening, actually, about Walker, who is someone who's worked in Waitrose for 17 years. He tried to stop a shoplifter. Waitrose sacked him. I mean, it's a little bit more complicated than that, but not much. He has described his devastation of being sacked for stopping a shoplifter stealing chocolate. He was going about his normal duties when a customer stopped him. They told me someone had filled up a Waitrose bag with eggs. He then saw that the shoplifter was a repeat offender. He grabbed the bag from the shoplifter, he snatched it back and said there was a struggle for a few seconds before it snapped. The chocolate fell to the floor. The shoplifter made a dash for the exit, and Smith said one of the bunnies broke into pieces. He picked up a piece and threw it out of frustration towards some shopping trolleys. He wasn't aiming at the shoplifter or anybody else. He was told off by his manager. He apologised, but the matter escalated. Smith says he was previously told not to approach shoplifters, but the toll of seeing them get away with theft repeatedly spurred him into action. "I've been there 17 years, said Walker. "I've seen it happen every hour of every day for the last 5 years. It's everybody from drug addicts to teenagers nicking bits and bobs or walking out with bottles of wine in their arms. We're not allowed to do anything." That is a good man who was described by someone who knows him earlier on in this programme as a gentleman. Now he doesn't have a job. Debbie in Lincolnshire has given me a ring, 0344 499 1000. Debbie, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Hi Peter, thank you for having me. I was in a local supermarket last week and I witnessed what I would call a robbery, but the police told me it's not a robbery because there's no firearms, it was just a theft. But this guy was a decoy at the counter. There was 3 members of staff behind the counter whilst his 2 friends, if you want to call them that, wiped out all the baby milk and all the medicine. As they legged it out of the store, and then the other guy that was doing the decoy followed them, one of the guys went out to chase them to get the stuff back and managed to come back with 1 bit of the baby milk. And the manager, they were all a bit distraught, but the manager went, "I have to discipline him, because it's a sackable offence." But he was chuffed he got something back, and he said, "Well, it's not theirs, it's ours."
So hold on, Debbie. Who got the baby milk back?
One of the members of staff.
And now he has to be disciplined as a result. It's really interesting you mentioned this. Co-op, you said there, yeah?
I didn't, but yes.
Okay. It's come up on my screen as co-op, so it was a supermarket anyway. But it's interesting you mentioned that, because someone who was who works for co-op told me, not this one, different co-op, told me last week, he was on about something else, and he said, "I work for co-op, and if we confront shoplifters, we can get sacked."
Correct.
What does this say? So they took all the baby formula and loads of medicine as well?
They wiped the shop out of baby formula. I think they left 1, but they completely wiped out of baby formula and all the medicine. And this guy
all the medicine, what everything?
Yeah, everything. Honestly, in big bags. And they just brazenly just wandered off. They didn't even run. But this chap went out after them and he came back and he was so chuffed he had 1 baby milk with him. But the manager was like, "I have to discipline him."
For goodness sake. And did the police come? What happened?
Oh no, the best thing was when I phoned 999 because you've got the staff behind the counter. And what was funny is because we live on a border, but we're in Lincolnshire, when we phoned 999, I got told, well, I'm Leicestershire Police. What do you want us to do about it?
For goodness sake, that is absolutely outrageous.
That's the God's honest truth.
Could you believe what was happening in front of your eyes?
No. I've never been in that situation. I was just like, wow. But it's frightening. But, you know, as I said to the manager, it's just human action. You just act. And I don't think people should be getting sacked. But as I said to this chap, you've got 2 young boys. You need to think what could be the consequences if you approach them. But I don't think that's a sackable offence.
It absolutely shouldn't be. Debbie, this is happening all the time. It's appalling. And good people are being penalised for the actions of bad people. That's just what's happening in our society right now.
Yeah, it's just wrong. And you sort of come home and you're a bit shook up and you go, that's why I'll order online. But you shouldn't have to do that. You should be able to go to your local shop and feel safe. And, you know, tip your hat to the staff and everyone be quite happy and chilled or whatever.
Yeah,
but no, that was a bit of a shock last week.
Goodness me. Well, listen, thank you for bringing that story to us. That's Debbie in Lincolnshire there. I appreciate her giving me a ring at 0344 499 1000. Carl in Liverpool did the same thing. He wants to talk about his namesake, Carl Turner. Carl, what are your thoughts about the MP, Carl Turner?
Good evening, Peter.
Good evening. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I think he's right in what he said over the last few weeks, criticising the government, especially on the jury thing, but also criticising Keir Starmer for judgment calls and things that he's done and said in the past. I don't think the guy's done anything wrong, really, and he's right to speak his opinion, well, to tell people his opinion.
But if you're in that party, does there not need to be some form of discipline? You know, criticising the party leader, saying that the chief of staff is called McSwindle. Is that reasonable behaviour?
Well, if we look at what we were told about, apparently the street he reported on was wrong. There was a mention of a balaclava. It wasn't mentioned after that. The gentleman who robbed him was black. You know, there was all different factors in his statement that weren't really matching up to what was happening. So I can think this scepticism would then make you wonder about, well, is he really telling the truth? Because it doesn't look like he is telling the truth, in all honesty, given what's around. Because if the phone call to the police, the first thing he should say is, I'm working for the PM.
Yeah, of course.
Blah, blah, blah,
it is utterly bizarre that he didn't do that, because, I mean, Sarah Vine, who was married, she's now divorced, but was married to Michael Gove, who was a minister on numerous different departments. His son, not an elected person, son of Michael Gove, got had his phone stolen. Sarah Vine rang and said, look, this is a cabinet member's son who's had his phone stolen, to the police. Police acted, it shouldn't happen this way. They should do the same thing for everybody who gets their phone stolen. But realistically, they're going to prioritise that, because that might have secret messages, things that could be blackmailed against a member of the then cabinet. I mean, he should have just said it. It's bizarre that he didn't. I've never understood why he didn't say that, Carl.
No, yeah, and that's the thing. Correct me if I'm wrong, Peter, his clearance is much higher than a lot of other government ministers.
That's true. That's true. I mean, it's really just the Foreign Secretary, Home Secretary who would have that level of access to those kind of documents. So you're absolutely spot on, Carl.
Yeah, so his importance within the Prime Minister's cabinet is quite high up. So his first thing should say, well, this is my phone, it's been stolen, I'm such and such, this is where I am, blah, blah, blah. But none of that was ever mentioned, you know. And then on the flip side, you've got Sadiq Khan's bodyguards leaving weapons outside the house and stuff. I mean, it just, the whole, between the PM and Morgan McSweeney and then Sadiq Khan's bodyguard stuff, it littered this government with just failure and mistakes throughout. And Morgan McSweeney, it does in my eyes, Peter.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you, and I do think that was a shocking thing. When I mean, we haven't even talked about that story this evening, about those weapons that were left outside Sadiq Khan's house by those protection officers. Absolutely outrageous. Carl, listen, thanks for that. That's Carl in Liverpool there. I appreciate the call. Another person says, has anyone told Mr. West what would happen to him if Hitler and his Nazi party were around today? He'd be in a labour camp as one of the other minorities that Hitler and the Nazi party hated, as well as the Jewish community. Very, very good point. Ed in Manchester says they need to allow Kanye West to come to the UK. Then the BBC can have him as a guest on Question Time with Carla Denyer, Zara Sultana, Zach Polanski and Ben Jamal, says Ed, who I think might have to extract his tongue from his cheek after that message. Lots to discuss. We're going to talk to a former fighter pilot in a minute. You're going to want to hear him, honestly. He's really fascinating, great talker. Wiz is his nickname, and he's going to tell us all about that daring rescue, exactly what will have happened, the procedures, and how it all will have worked with that airman who was lifted and rescued by the very brave American soldiers, the special forces that did that, and what training you go through to become a fighter pilot. This guy is the sort of real-life Top Gun. We're going to talk to him in a second, but just before we do, I want to tell you about the chance that you have to win a life-changing £20,000 completely tax-free here on Talk. That's £20,000 straight into your bank account. Spend it, save it, splash it. It's entirely up to you. Here's how you could be in with a chance to win.
For your chance to win, text TALK to 83338. Texts cost £2.50 plus your standard network rate. Or call 0343 418 7260. Lines close 9th of April 2026, 4 p.m. That's when you'll need to answer your phone if it rings. 18 plus, UK residents only. This is a network promotion. Full T's and C's at talk.tv/win. So for your chance to win, text TALK to 83338 now.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, thanks to everybody who has been in touch. We'll get to more of your calls, texts, tweets and voice notes very, very soon. Just want to remind you of what Donald Trump has been saying this evening. Quite a long news conference, an hour and a half. He said Iran could be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night. This is what the president has been saying.
Late Thursday night, an American F-15 fighter jet went down deep inside enemy territory in Iran while participating in Operation Epic Fury, where we're doing unbelievably well, well at a level that nobody's ever seen before. The entire country can be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night.
Goodness me. Donald Trump also talked about the Iran rescue mission and how it destroyed all threats with no casualties.
So in a breathtaking show of skill and precision, lethality and force, America's military descended on the area, the real area, engaged the enemy, rescued the stranded officer, destroyed all threats, and exited Iranian territory while taking no casualties of any kind. The heroic F-15 weapons system officer had evaded capture on the ground in Iran for almost 48 hours. That's a long time when you're in tough shape and when you're bleeding. It's a long time.
This was an epic rescue mission. It was astonishing. I was actually broadcasting on Times Radio, which is also in the group of radio stations that this company owns. I was doing a bit of fill-in for someone who was off yesterday morning. Incredible information came through about 5 o'clock in the morning, about an hour before we went on air, just about what had happened, what was happening, the efforts that were there to rescue this airman, this colonel. And it made me think, what on earth is it like to actually be a fighter pilot? What training do you receive? How do you react when something dreadful like that happens? And Wiz Buckley is with me now. He's a former Navy fighter pilot and Top Gun graduate. Wiz, thank you for joining me. It's great to talk to you. Tell me about your reflections on what President Trump was saying there, an incredible feat of the search and rescue operation here.
Absolutely, Peter, and thanks for having me. Just what an incredible display of military capabilities. This CSAR, Combat Search and Rescue Force, fought their way into bad guy country, established a small airfield. They flew in a couple C-130s that had helicopters inside. So they established essentially a forward air base, rescued the downed backseater, a weapons systems officer, and then tried to take off again. But the C-130, a little too heavy, got stuck in the mud or the sand. So they actually blew those up so they wouldn't fall into enemy hands. And they brought in some smaller Special Forces propeller aircraft to extricate that aviator. It was just an incredible mission from start to finish. The CIA got involved with a deceptive campaign with the Iranian people and some of the Iranian forces. We even sent a little decoy search and rescue force in an opposite direction to kind of draw their attention over in that direction as well. So near flawless operation from start to finish, and very happy that we got the second downed aviator home.
There is this astonishing thing as well that they had to make the decision, a very costly decision, to actually destroy a couple of American helicopters as well within this. That will have been a very quick decision that was made because they were malfunctioning, but actually these things, they go through so much training for all of this. Just tell us a little bit about the training that you went through, because many of us have seen the film Top Gun and all the rest of it, but how true to reality is it? You've been a fighter pilot, you've gone through that training. It's extremely tough.
It's extremely tough getting to be a fighter pilot. I think a briefcase full of cash was given to them when I slipped through the cracks. I don't know how I got in. But so after you get your wings as a naval aviator, as a Navy fighter pilot, you go through what's called SEER training: survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. And I did it in the mountains of California. And let me tell you, man, it was not fun. You have U.S. forces dressed as enemy opposing forces. They have AK-47s with blanks, obviously, but after a couple days of not eating and trying to evade capture, you start believing it's real, man. And then you get captured or you have to surrender, and they put you in a POW-like camp. And it's the only place in the United States military where they're allowed to put hands on you. Let's just say I got roughed up a little bit, and it's a little interesting that, years ago, I remember the debate about waterboarding and, oh, geez, waterboarding terrorists. I remember looking at my wife going, I got waterboarded. So in the U.S.
by your own side, because they were trying
by my own side.
What is that
Absolutely.
like? What's it like being waterboarded?
It was, I've done some scary things in my life. It was the most terrifying experience in my life. I would have given my own mother at that point. It was that terrifying. So our survival training is pretty realistic. But Peter, I got to be honest with you, man. I don't think all the training in the world can fully prepare you for your aircraft getting hit and you choosing between death and reaching down between your legs for the black and yellow ejection handles and pulling, because that's your choice at that point. Either I'm going to die, or let's give this ejection seat an opportunity to save my life. It's one of the most violent experiences the human body can go through. It's about 20 Gs.
Have you ever ejected, or do you just know about it?
No. Thank God I've never had to eject.
But it's an incredibly fast thing, isn't it? It's very dramatic.
We went through an ejection seat trainer, and I remember asking the instructor, about the force. He's like, it's like 1/100th of the force, and my back hurt for a week. So it's incredibly violent, and it sounds like the backseater either got injured during the ejection or when they landed. And this might, shock some of your viewers and listeners. We don't practice that. The first time I'd be parachuting as a fighter pilot is if I had to eject. We don't go through parachute training or any sort of stuff like that. It's like, well, if this happens, here's what you do.
Goodness me. Just tell us the physicality and also the emotion that those, and the resilience you need to be in enemy territory, to be shooting at those targets, but also to know that you have this very weird situation where you're stranded by yourself in enemy territory, thinking, do they know where I am? Do they not know where I am? You could be killed at any moment. You could be taken prisoner at any moment. And then if you get rescued, actually, there's a big drama in that as well as the life-changing consequences to your career, to your family, to your life, the media interest. Just talk me through all of that.
So a couple of things, Peter. Obviously, we don't send a single F-15E raging around Iran by themselves. They were part of the strike package. They had a wingman or they had a flight lead. So the instant this aircraft was in trouble and they decided to get out of the airplane, we knew where they were. And we briefed this as part of the brief before we go flying. Hey, if anybody goes down, whoever has situational awareness becomes what we call the on-scene commander. You launch the search and rescue effort, you orbit where they are, you establish communications. So we knew where they were, and I'm not going to dig too deep into the secret squirrel stuff, but there was a lot of there was a lot of equipment on the aviators, and there was a lot of equipment in the ejection seat. We know where they are.
Yep.
So as soon as they ejected, there was a bunch of young American men and women sitting at the end of the runway playing cards. Our combat search and rescue forces, they've been bored. Thank God they've been bored for the past 6 weeks. 13,000 combat sorties flown, and up until a couple days ago, we hadn't lost an aircraft yet. So when that horn sounded, they scrambled to their helicopters, they scrambled to their C-130s, and they got airborne almost within minutes, right? So on the receiving end, if you're in bad guy country, yeah, you're a little scared, but you know the full weight and force of the United States military is coming to get you. The motto of the Combat Search and Rescue Forces of the United States Air Force is so that others may live. Those helicopters that you probably saw the videos of them ripping around at low altitude over Iran, along with the C-130. They were getting shot at. The men and women of our Combat Search and Rescue Forces, they live that ethos so that others may live. They're going to take some hits. They might even go down, but we are not going to leave a man or woman behind. So even if you're on the ground and you're scared, you just know that everybody, the president knows your name right now, and his only mission is to get you home safe. So that can be a little reassuring.
Speaking of the president, what is your view about how this war has been not perhaps executed by those who have the same training and the same abilities and have gone through the same kind of training as you have, but the war more generally, because there are many who feel that it's the right thing, it's the wrong thing. I just wonder what your perspective is on this, especially now you're out of the military.
Well, I'm going to age myself a little bit, Peter. I was a young teenager when I remember a lot of Americans being taken hostage. Radical Islamic terrorists stormed our embassy. I remember seeing blindfolded U.S. Marines. I've never seen a blindfolded Marine or a captured Marine like that. So the Iranians started this war 47 years ago. I remember the Marine Beirut barracks bombing. I remember Khobar Towers, the USS Cole. 603 Marine soldiers and airmen were killed by Iranian forces and IEDs when we were in Iraq. So at a minimum, over 1,000 U.S. troops have been killed over the years from the Iranians. So when your enemy says, if we get a nuke, we're going to use it, I'd believe them, especially people that have done this to us in the past. So it might not be political palatable, but ridding a regime of a nuke, and they almost hit Diego Garcia with an inter-range ballistic missile, which means it could have hit the UK. They said they didn't have those things, and then they just lit off a couple bottle rockets. Put a nuke on top of one of those, and it could be a pretty ugly day. Look at what they're doing right now, lashing out at their neighbors, their so-called brothers in Bahrain or the UAE or Kuwait or Qatar. They're lashing out at their brothers. Imagine if they did have a nuke. And it's interesting, Peter, because here in the States, man, some folks today were, I honestly believe some people in this country are honestly rooting for that guy to get captured.
Yeah.
Just so it would be a strike against President Trump. I mean, and then today, those same people are wanking about, well, we lost 2 HC-130s and they're $100 million apiece. So I'm like, excuse me, man, you guys didn't say a word when we left $85 billion of military equipment when we surrendered and fled Afghanistan in the middle of the night and didn't tell our allies.
It's selective outrage. It is selective outrage, and we have it on so many different subjects, not least the war with Iran as well. And I do often question where are those people who go on and on and on about human rights when it comes to the people in Iran who are repressed, the women who are raped and then killed by the regime because they are adulterers, things like that. It is just absolutely awful. Listen,
it is.
I want to talk to you a little bit, Wiz, just before you go, about the work you do now. I know you've got a sort of day job, but there's a foundation that you're part of as well that deals with traumatic brain injury. Tell me about that, why you do it and what you do.
Well, Peter, traumatic, out of the, I think, 200 or 300 injuries we've seen so far in Operation Epic Fury, most of them are traumatic brain injury. So we're going to have a lot of veterans, sadly, coming home with traumatic brain injury and PTSD. And I'll tell you what, man, 5 years ago, I traveled down south of the border of the United States to Mexico, and I sat with psychedelic-assisted therapy. I sat with one of the most powerful psychedelic on the planet called Ibogaine. And let me just tell you, it was not fun. It was not recreational. I've done some challenging things in my life, and this was one of the most challenging, but it saved and changed my life. It destroyed me hitting the bottle. It destroyed decades of trauma. And I'm not one to use this phrase lightly. I was literally born again. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Lone Survivor, with Mark Wahlberg about the Navy SEAL, but I went down to Mexico with Marcus Luttrell, a famous Navy SEAL. So we are using these ancient compounds to help cure modern problems. Because I got to tell you, Peter, in the United States, there's a revolving door between the VA, the Veterans Administration, and Big Pharma. Yeah. They just throw pills down your throat, and we'll see you in 10 months from now if you can get an appointment.
Do you think people are do you think, given what you went through and given the clear trauma that you experienced, do you think that people are too skeptical about psychedelics, for example? Because there will be people who say, actually, that's unsafe.
Well, what's funny, Peter, is we've switched in the United States. When I've been to D.C. to lobby for this, I thought Democrats were already there, right? Malabeads, drug rugs, anti-war. It's because I thought they were all hippies back in the day, right? It's flipped. The law and order Republicans, when I give them a brief, even the most anti-drug, anti-criminal Republican, when I say, hey, man, I'm a former Navy fighter pilot, and these compounds saved and changed my life, it's the Republicans that are sitting up going, hey, why aren't these compounds legal? So it's a really, as you just talked about, there's like some selective outrage. But I don't think too much of myself. Marcus Luttrell, this Navy SEAL, doesn't. But if regular mom and pop sitting at home can go, well, wait a minute, if these guys are swearing that psychedelic-assisted therapy helped them, maybe there's something there and we can look into it. The war on drugs that Nixon did in the United States was an absolute miserable failure, and he did it to go after the hippies and the anti-war folks. Oh, what did you take that you love people? Oh, these mushrooms? Well, they're a felony. Here's your rifle. Go kill the Vietnamese. So the war on drugs was an absolute disgrace. A Schedule I drug in America is no therapeutic use and a high risk of addiction. That's alcohol and tobacco. But these compounds that I sat with were anti-addictive. It destroyed alcohol in my life, and it saved my life. So we label things in the U.S. the exact opposite of what they are, sadly. So hopefully we can get some movement on these issues.
Very interesting to hear from you on all of those issues. Wiz, thank you. Great privilege to talk to you. Really interesting. Wiz Buckley there, former Navy fighter pilot and Top Gun graduate. He can be my wingman anytime. Lots more to discuss on all of this. Whatever you think about what Wiz was saying there, do give me a shout, 0344 499 1000. And thank you to Leslie. He says the chief executives of other major supermarkets should offer the sacked man Walker, they should offer him a job. What an asset he would be, and it would really show up Waitrose as well. Another person says, what a brilliant rescue of the American air crew. Can you imagine if Starmer had to rescue one of ours after a Cobra meeting and a review, says that texter. So much more to discuss between now and 10. We'll have a quick word with Petri as well about what's coming up in her programme. But you can still get through, you can still get on the air. 0344 499 1000. Stay with us.
Good morning to you. This is Tour de Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Burgess. Breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files has released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Elle has been in touch on Twitter and says, fab interview with Wiz on Talk. I bow down to brave warriors like Wiz and blown away by the incredible rescue mission in Iran. I honestly don't know how people like Wiz do it. Thank you to them. Hats off. They're doing great work now, says Elle. Well, thank you for that. Let's go to the phones. Heather is in South Ayrshire and has some thoughts on shoplifting. Heather, you're very welcome to the programme. What would you like to say?
Well, it's a quote my situation of catch-22. It's a case of damned if you do, damned if you don't. We're tackling with shoplifters in our country because this is getting really out of hand. And the simple reason why the staff is being told not to deal with them in every single supermarket companies, it's because the fear of being sued by the shoplifters, of like in case they get injured. And that's the quagmire situation that they are facing. It's a damn if you do, damn if you don't with this.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks for that point. Pam is in Edinburgh and has some thoughts on Matt Vickers. Pam, you're very welcome to the programme. We heard from Matt earlier on about this top Tory blasted for flogging £5 tickets to constituents who want to meet him. What do you think, Pam?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, actually. You don't have to go. You know, you can go to surgery and pay nothing. But I think what he's doing is trying to recreate like a social event. And I like Matt Vickers. I mean, I'm not a Tory, I'm not anything. I'm still undecided. But he comes across as what I would call a normal human being, if you like, as opposed to most MPs. So I'd be happy to, I mean, I'm in Scotland, obviously, but I mean, I think the people down there should be very lucky because I think it's a great idea and I think more MPs should do it.
You're not a Tory, though, but would you be happy for that £5 to go for campaign leaflets and things like that, especially when, as Matt said earlier on, his constituents could just go and chat to him for free for any time when it comes to his constituency surgeries and so on?
Yeah, you see, I always felt under Tory I was okay. I'm really torn between Tory and Reform at the moment.
Okay, that's your dilemma at the moment.
It's a very difficult thing.
Although where you are, of course, it's the SNP that's in charge, and given the polls, they're likely to be still in charge after the Scottish parliamentary election.
No, I don't think so. I used to vote SNP. Because I like Nicola Sturgeon, and I think it all went wrong when she left.
Okay.
You know, and now, no, I wouldn't, no way. But I want to say one thing about King Charles. I think he's made a big mistake not doing that Easter message.
Okay.
I think people at this moment in time, the way the country is, they
maybe could have done with it, Pam.
They could have done with it.
Okay.
And I think it's wrong. That's the only thing I would say. I spoke to you last week anyway.
I remember, Pam.
Yes, I've spoken about my grandson, but I'll be a regular, Peter.
Okay, well, that's great, Pam. You're always welcome in this programme. Thank you to Pam in Edinburgh there. And someone who I also speak to reasonably regularly is Petri Hoskin, who's coming up after the news.
We're matching.
We are matching. Yes, I got my pink shirt today,
Yeah.
so yeah, we're coordinated.
Yeah, well, I walked in, tipped water all over myself, and then walked across the camera. So I've
Well
done
done.
so far.
Excellent. That's
I've
great.
I've got soaking wet arm.
Well done.
Anyway,
Yeah, good.
I've done
Always a good
really
start to a show.
Always good way to start the show. We're going to be addressing Trump and what's going on, because nobody seems to know, least of all him. So we'll be talking about that with a guy called Steve Siebold. I don't know if you've heard of him, but he worked with Donald Trump.
Oh, wow.
For about 15 years. He's known him since the 90s, so he kind of has an insight into...
I mean, the line, Iran, the entire country could be taken out in one night, and that night might be tomorrow night.
I mean, he's just painting himself into ever tighter corners, or is he going to attack her, or what? You know, whatever.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
we're looking at that. Also, the cost of strikes. The doctor strikes have cost the NHS $3 billion in 3 years. $3 billion
Wow.
that could have been spent on us.
Yes.
So we're looking into the price of that and heading back to the